All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Morbid Symptoms podcast. I'm your host, Tara. And I'm sorry, I have a bamboo screen on my window, and it's making weird things with my green screen that I just bought. I don't care. I'm a one-woman show. It is what it is.
I probably need my microphone, right?
Oh, I can hear you good. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry,
Right.
I completely forgot I needed a microphone to talk.
It's all right. Well, it's not like we're having talking about any kind of prickly subject today, Noah.
Right.
We're just here to talk about the weather. Anyway, welcome. I'm very excited to have Noah on today from Midwestern Marx. Anyway, I'm Tara. This is Morbid Symptoms, and this is our third and I hope a long-term series. Marxist men come out of the gender closet, and it's basically when we have an open podcast policy. Any Marxist man who has been mum on the gender issue, or even maybe not even mum, maybe has taken shots and was trans womaning or womening or whatever. We're all cracked vessels, and we can oh look, I'm really sparkly now, it's fine. We can I don't want to say repent, although it would be appropriate for the gender ideology, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so Noah, gender critical or ultra? I don't know if you know these terms, but I might have a vote after our episode for the TERFs. Be like, okay, Noah, gender critical or ultra?
I don't know what those words mean, but
okay.
So I'll make a guess. I'm assuming gender critical means you don't buy gender ideology. And I'm assuming ultra is sort of past that into an extreme version of it.
Yeah, usually. So first of all, usually how people on the center to the left, as far left as you want to go, usually the trajectory at first is like, oh, live and let live, whatever, Mm-hmm. And then you become kind of critical. You're like, well, what the Caitlyn Jenner is this, and what the women's sports is this, and what what the they them, and why are people being pushed out of jobs and etc. And then you become kind of critical, like, well, it's like, okay, so there's basically you're like all for it in terms of inclusion and all that, but with the quote unquote reasonable boundaries,
okay.
And with the idea that, like, well, yeah, you're not really in the wrong body. It's like you're saying that as a metaphor, right? Like, I feel like, and right. Then you realize, no, they want you there. The thing is, like, no, there's two types of women now, male women and female women, or just as unintentional hags, breeders. And then the intentional women who really put the effort into it, those male women. And the same for guys, or people who are neither, or both, or go back and forth. And then you're like, what? And then you try to work in it. Like, if you can find middle ground, reasonableness.
Right.
Nice, just listen them out and be like, okay, I understand that. And then at some point we call it peaked, when you're like, yeah, fuck this shit. I'm not doing the pronouns. I'm not pretending, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to do it because they've politicized the sex binary now, and it matters. Ultra, not buying it one little bit publicly. So
gotcha.
That's kind of the trajectory.
Well, yeah. I'll leave it up to the audience to
yeah, you don't really have to out yourself to that degree. No. It's a journey. It's a gender journey. Anyway, before we get into the meat of the matter, I want to just kind of clarify, at least in my mind, I'm not a master. I'm not Noah's master. But how I just want to set some boundaries for what we're going to talk about today and what we're not going to talk about today. So basically, we've seen the left twist itself into ideological pretzels where gender is concerned, but very few Marxists, especially male Marxists, have spoken up. Today, Noah from Midwestern Marx literally joins us, and also perhaps joins officially into the fray of this, what we call the sex gender ID war or struggle. Yeah. So basically, in the last instance, is it sex or is it your gender feelings? All right. But what this episode is not, it's not a biology lesson. Yeah. We're not going to talk about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. We're not going to talk about that. That's not what this is. Yeah. We're based on the assumption, well, not even an assumption, but we're in the facts that they're male and female. That's determined by the sperm that fertilizes the egg, and no one has ever actually transitioned. and everybody can be determined to be male or female. And every single person who's ever been on this planet or ever will be on this planet until the transgender medicine people take over came out wait for it, woman. That's the end of the biology lesson. We're not going to get into that. We're also not here to affirm anybody's this or that or other persona, or to pick on any particular one person. We're looking at this in terms of very much how the left was trans and taken over, what I call genderborged or bought, from everyone all of a sudden acting like, well, yeah, there's, you can be this or that. And these are just two types of men and two types of women and people who are neither and both and all of this and all the stuff that went with that. From a Marxist point of view, we're going to get into queer theory, which is going to be that Noah's been working on. And that's what the show is about. So I just want to clarify that. We're not getting into the biology. We're not getting into the weeds of clownfish or any of that bullshit. This is basically about focusing on the left and Marx in particular, and also getting at an appropriate Marxist critique of gender ideology. Starting today. Noah, your opening salvo, sir.
All right. Well, so first, for anyone who doesn't know who I am, I'm Noah. Yeah. I'm one of the directors of the Midwestern Marx Institute and one of the executive board members of the American Communist Party. This sort of really piqued my interest years ago, but I was in a position where I couldn't really talk about it. We'll get into that. But right now I'm writing a paper for what I believe is now the leading theoretical Marxist journal in America, Red America, on queer theory specifically. And we'll get into, how that's different from gender ideology and all that too. Because there's not enough real clarification on this, and the history leading us up to here and the period of American history where we didn't really have a left wing. We have people that called themselves left, but were they really a left? I don't know.
They just weren't right.
Right. Well, we had an anti-right is what we had. And we kind of, on the right, we had an anti-left. So it's very, we could get into the dialectics of that, but it's kind of boring. But so during this period, a lot of falsifications came about, a lot of vagaries sort of took the place of real materialist analysis. And getting back to that now in the 2020s, as we're sort of getting into this giant period of crises, I think is mandatory. We need to re-clarify what Marxism is and why it's important, and separate it from all of the bourgeois theories that sort of masquerade as revolutionary or somehow rebellious, or that castigate Marxism as, class reductionism and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's sort of, maybe that's a weak opening salvo, but I like to build up the stuff.
It's fine, yeah. It's a live stream. It is what it's good. I enjoyed what you said.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So again, the broad theme of this show is about how, and again, I also want to say two things. Don't put my words in Noah's mouth. Yeah. So what I say, I'm saying. What he says. And also, as far as he's here on his behalf. These are Noah's ideas, not the official position of any of the organizations that he is a part of. Yeah. So that's there. So let's keep that in mind. Because if anybody starts to pull any crap, Noah's nice. I'm not that nice. Okay. Anyway, so how the left got trans, the role of queer theory played in it, and what a principled materialist Marxist position looks like. Hint, boys and ladies, it requires some courage. Okay, so let's get right into it. Why was the left so easily and thoroughly trans, or like to call genderborged? Using, for the people who don't know, the Borg from Star Trek, you're assimilated, the gender, the queen who's like can assimilate with whoever.
I watched Star Trek like religiously with my dad.
Okay, so
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of the Borg, but it's funny because these days it reminds me a lot of the Red Scares and McCarthyism. Right? What was McCarthyism other than the ruling class enforcing ideology onto the American people, right? And hunting down communists, ruining their lives, making sure they were unemployed, unemployable, etc. right? And the same sort of thing is happening now, just in a new 21st century form, right? Everything in the entire universe continues to change and develop over time before it, decays, dies off, blah, blah, blah. And this seems to me to be the new 21st century ideology of the ruling class. So as the working class begins to enter into crises again, because, they're kind of inevitable, we see the same sort of thing against them as, they have this sort of confused populism that we're all sort of gaining knowledge of these days. And that was exactly how they acted back then, which ties into the strategy that the ruling class used directly after McCarthyism. Everything always goes back to anti-communism in America. It really does. And part of the whole mythology of it is pretending that it doesn't, right? So in the interwar period and leading up to right after the Red Scares, the CIA or what the precursor to it begin infiltrating left-wing organizations, and then going a little further, they create what Thomas Braden, who was the CIA agent that was in charge of a lot of this, called a compatible left, right? That if they needed a left, they needed one that was compatible with the ruling class and the social order. And so you get things like the Congress for Cultural Freedom, right? Which was a program to sort of fund journals and academics, etc., that would be, tertiarily left and connected to slogans and language and all these signifiers that mean left wing to people, but its substance, its real essential character would be in preservation of the ruling order and the ruling class, right? I mean, there's a ton of famous people that have been funded by it, right? Like Noam Chomsky was writing for a journal that was funded by the Congress for Cultural Freedom. You get into its funding of the Frankfurt School, and this leads us to the cultural critique, right? And this is really where the severing of Marxism comes about from everything that is called left wing in America. Even when during the New Left period, when this really, really, really took off, when there were still a few genuinely left wing groups, it was still more popular. And they still had people in all of the genuinely left wing organizations. Now, I don't want to give you guys a history lesson. That's not what this is really about. But if we fast forward a little bit, right, to the fall of the Soviet Union, you really just had one left wing group left. And it was the CPUSA, and it was a shadow of what it had been. As they split, when the Soviets fall, there's nothing left in America. Not really. The CIO had been purged of communists decades ago, and we're left in this sort of really dark period where all of these falsifications are just so more easily spread because there's nothing to fight against them anymore. I mean, Henry Winston's long dead. He was very big on fighting against this sort of identitarian left movement. Gus Hall dies in the year 2000, but even he had sort of lost his steam after the big CPUSA split in 91. So we end up with a generation of people who have no real truth as to what a left wing is anymore. And so what comes about is the sort of melding of bourgeois institutions with the left as it sort of rose out of the middle class. That's one thing I forgot to mention about how easily it was spread, is the rise of the middle class. They sort of just become what people think of when they think of left wing, right? And these people, they talk about Marx, they talk about Engels. Some of them will even talk about Lenin and all of these types. But the essential character of their theory is coming out of this compatible left rather than an actual communist party. I mean, back in the day when the CPUSA was.
Yeah, but no, if I may, because I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't want to lose sight of the gender craziness of it all, because you still have, it's one, I totally am, I am in agreement, and I think it's important to realize how anti-communism really is a thrust, a through line through all this stuff, but. Yeah. There's one thing to move away from a class politics to get to kind of an ABC, anything but class, and to focus on, sexual liberation and women and race. But for everybody to act like there's magic prefixes that when somebody says it actually means that they're a woman, even if they're clearly not. That's, I think, wouldn't you say that's something different? Is that a difference in degree, or?
I think so I have a sort of like ascension to the concrete built into my mind. If I ramble, please just cut me off.
I just wanted to make sure that part doesn't get lost.
Oh, no. That's like the culmination point.
How the frick did we get here?
Right. No, that's where I'm
saying that sex is real is a fascist right-wing opinion.
Which is crazy to me. This is what I'm getting to. So out of this sort of fake left milieu, right, comes new theories on being, like postmodernism, right? And this, because there was nothing left wing to really combat it, and because of all the money being put into it, becomes what's known as left wing. And all of this gender ideology stems out of it and uses it as its roots. Right. Without Foucault, there's no, Gender Trouble by Judith Butler. And without all of these academics and think tanks and NGOs, there's no movement. And if you really, I began by reading Foucault, and I hate Foucault so much. It's to give you guys like a simplification of postmodernism. And
maybe he was fun at parties, no? Like, you remember like George Bush, you could be like, oh, you could have a beer with him. You wouldn't want to go hang out.
When he wasn't attacking children, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, okay. That's true.
Allegedly.
Yeah. It's easy. We all know it's easy to believe every bad thing that somebody says about somebody you don't like. Yeah.
Very true.
I knew it.
Right. But this postmodernism is sort of this new philosophy that comes about along in that era. Its basic tenets are that nothing is real. There's no objective truth, right, to anything. It's sort of a throwback to the old neo-Kantians, but instead of objective truth, they talk about narratives that we tell ourselves, right? And that creates the truth for people. And it's really important to understand that Jenny Lynn is hilarious.
I know. I'm listening to you. I don't want to get too far behind. So when people are just saying hello and it's not really to you or me, I'm just going to, just keep on going.
It's fine.
Yeah. I can, I have 3 kids. I can do 2 things at once. So go on.
I don't know how you deal with 3. I have problems with 1. Okay. So instead of objective truth, like this pen is in my hand, I perceive it. It's like competing narratives of what truth is. And whichever narrative really ends up being more powerful is the dominant one, right? And this is how you can get insistence on unreality becoming reality for millions of people. And we're talking, well, maybe not millions, maybe thousands. I don't know how many people actually believe this. I'm not in their minds. But this is the very basic premise, right? And so we get into this. He's correct. Actually, I got a funny.
No, I know, and I think you're quite right, because you can, even though how things kind of bleed into the culture, we're always hearing about like people's journeys and their story and their truth, and then you can go back to what you're talking about, and you can start hearing these things about alternative epistemologies. Epistemes, power, knowledge, this type of stuff that basically is kind of at the only thing I guess you could kind of say it's materialist about is kind of like a discursive materialism, kind of like a Ramsey's. Yeah. If I say it and I believe it and enough people go along with it, then it's pretty much true. Yeah.
And what's wild to me is that goes along with the way Western media has functioned over time and how it's changed, right? And why we all know we can't trust the mainstream media these days, which is interesting to me because a lot of people say,
hold on
like,
just a second. Sorry. How is Noah's sound, people? Because Max Gorky says, can Noah turn up his mic a bit?
Here, hold. I can do that.
Noah's getting to that. Okay. that was a few minutes ago. So how's the sound? Jenny Lynn, is the sound good?
I can do a little test. How's this, guys?
He sounds fine on my end. Okay.
Cool.
So it must be okay. So I think we're doing good. Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I know I have a loud voice, so I'm always a bit.
I'm my wife is constantly telling me I'm too loud.
And I also have the thing, I don't know if you do it. I still have this thing like I have to lean into the microphone, even though I know I don't have to. But anyway.
I actually have to. I made my microphone directional because it can be loud in my house. So only right here. Yes. Anyway,
back to Foucault. Narrative.
Unreality, becoming reality, right? Becoming performances. So my most recent read has been Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, right? And by the way, if you're interested in learning about this stuff and what it is for yourself, don't read that one. There is nothing I hate in this world more than academics writing in this stupid like format where it's just every weird word they don't need to use just to sound smart. And that's all this book is.
Well, and also, I don't know if you're familiar with Irving Goffman, but a lot of what she wrote, I thought, well, this isn't really anything new. It's kind of just packaged differently.
Well, that was another problem I had with it, is a lot of it is actually just her talking about, what Lacan said about this. What's the one, someone's name with a D. Anyway, it's just, and a lot of academia is like that. It's just pages upon pages.
Well, she's a philosopher, so.
Right. And that bothers me too. Like, just say your idea. I don't need to know, like,
maybe she just doesn't know. I don't know.
I think if you took out every part of that book that's about what someone else said, mostly Lacan, but other people in general, because Lacan's sort of a center and starting point of sexual theories, right? If you take all that out, the book's like 30 pages long.
And
it's
one sentence. It's one 30-page long sentence.
It's weird to me, but it reminds me, and this is why I'm kind of mad at myself for forgetting to bring up the middle class thing. In reality, in the objective reality that these people don't believe really exists, there's one thing that sort of drives social change. It's necessity, right? And how that happens is really based in sort of, or how that happens is basically what Marxism is studying. Right. Now, as the middle classes develop, the necessity for immediate change sort of withers for a bunch of people, giving them time to, kind of navel gaze. And there's this great quote by Lenin. I want to try to find it real quick and read it to you guys, because every book I've read on this has reminded me of this quote. And it's in a interview that Clara Zetkin did with him on the women's question. And this was at a time.
What's the question? The Matt Walsh one? What is a woman? Or was it,
no,
or was it taken as an assumption that we knew that the woman was the female? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Lenin was aware that women are the ones with ovaries. And
female of the species.
Right. But so
sorry.
He says, let me see here.
Oh, okay, well, if you want to look at that, I'll just regale our fans. Well, I hope there's some fans with some of the responses to this, because while Noah's looking at that, it was kind of nice. It's been a good week for us who are no longer in who are either never were or aren't in the gender closet anymore, meaning we're not afraid to talk about this. a friend of the show, and I think you also know Alexander McKay.
Yeah, I just talked to him.
Like
Great
3 or 4 days ago, he put out this tweet. Gender ideology is a form of reactionary idealism that must have no place in any working class organization. Anyone who gets taken in by it must be given the opportunity to correct their errors via proper political education. Those who refuse to give up reactionary idealism must be shown the door. And there's a video to this I would suggest everybody watch. I was like, oh, that's good, because I knew that you were coming on this today. And I'm like, oh, this is a nice thing. And of course, as you can imagine, the pronouns, the gender people, the trans rights activists who oftentimes don't identify as trans themselves, but think that these special angels should never hear the word no, went cuckoo. And so do you have the quote?
I do, but go on. I don't want to interrupt.
I'll just do one more, and we'll get to this later. T.S. Hannibal, who is a quote unquote trans woman, so one of these female women, informed me that, let me state the obvious for you. You don't get to decide what a woman is. Policing gender identity on the basis of characteristics makes you an agent of patriarchy. But who am I kidding? Aren't you a Trump supporter? So, I got back to him that. So just on that note, we'll get to, it doesn't get any better from there. But on that note, I responded to, I just say Dave because I don't know what the actual name is. It's also an anonymous account. And I just said, you're quite white. I don't get to decide who the women are. Nature does that, and regardless of how you feel about or what you want, is what it is, baby. There's men, there's males, females. All the rest is marketing, porn, and cult. So
it's wild to me that
objectively, I'm not talking about the queer theory of it all.
It's weird to me that we're in this position where we need to make that statement.
God, I know. And then it's controversial, Noah.
Right.
You can get in trouble for that. The DSA will not. The DSA doesn't want to hear this shit, or the PSL.
Oh, definitely not. And it shows you how compromised these organizations that rose up during the period without a left are. That, I mean, the ruling class hasn't stopped infiltrating left-wing groups and trying to steer them in directions that are safe for the ruling class. If we think they've stopped that very obvious thing they were doing, I think we're naive. But it's just, I keep going back to how I'm reminded of the Red Scares, right? I mean, they've come after me quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
you'll be getting some. I'm sure more you guys, because of course there's a which is why I do appreciate, and I have issues. We have issues with the silence, with we're like hello Marxists. Hello. Do you not see the capitalism of it all? Do you not see the alienation of it all?
It's a giant industry.
Yeah. But I also realize the shitstorm that can come down on you, and you have to pick your battles.
Yeah.
I get it. But
I mean, they can be
you guys have anyway, before you go on, I just want to toot your horn a bit. So I think it's really cool that you're coming out and doing this, because of course you are associated. Well, you're part of the executive board of ACP, which has a big target on its back. And so I'm sure that it may not be the most politically wise thing to do to come out and say that men can't be women and women can't be men. So God bless you, sir. Lenin bless you, sir. Continue.
I mean, the people who are coming after us for this were already after us. So what are you going to do? Right. It's just like, I'll tell you a story. I was in the old party before it liquidated itself. And I had a 20-year-old woman who was a Dartmouth student who'd never worked a day in her life, literally trying to ruin my life over just simply saying to someone who said they were trans, maybe you should be patient with older people. They didn't grow up with this. They don't understand what you're saying. Maybe try patience, and not, as as a man or as a woman or anything. As a
Check your
communist,
privilege.
right? Like as a communist, one, you should be respectful to the old heads. That's just should be a given. Old heads are the last generation, right? But this person tried to ruin my life over this and wouldn't stop hounding me, organizing lie campaigns throughout the party against me. Just insanity. Because I was now labeled a queer phobe, right? For saying to be patient with old people, and that's how ridiculous it gets. But I found that quote from Lenin. I really want to read it because it's so poignant. And it was about the sort of same middle class navel gazing in his era that we see giving rise to these sort of things now.
Yeah.
He says, I mistrust the sexual theories of the articles, dissertations, pamphlets, etc. In short, of that particular kind of literature which flourishes luxuriantly in the dirty soil of bourgeois society. I mistrust those who are always contemplating the several questions like the Indian saint, his navel. It seems to me that these flourishing sexual theories, which are mainly hypothetical, same with all of queer theory, by the way, all hypothetical, and often quite arbitrary hypotheses, same thing, arise from the personal need to justify personal abnormality or hypertrophy in sexual life before bourgeois morality and to entreat its patience. So basically, I have something that sets me at odds with the norm in society, and I need to appeal to bourgeois morality for acceptance, right? This mass respect for bourgeois morality seems to me just as repulsive as poking about in sexual matters, which is what all this comes out of.
Yeah.
However wild and revolutionary the behavior may seem, it is really quite bourgeois. It is mainly a hobby of the intellectuals and of the sections nearest them. There is no place for it in the party, in the class-conscious fighting proletariat. And this is precisely a roadmap of how this has arisen in our time, right? It is the hobby of the intellectuals, right? And the sections nearest them in society are the NGOs, the professional activists, etc. And this is where this all comes from, right? It comes from bourgeois institutions, which are inhabited by middle-class people, and then spread into society from there. And I think it's really important when we're examining anything to examine the class character of it. This is why they get very mad at us for, talking about their petty bourgeois individualism, not having anything to do with us in the working class.
Yeah.
What we need.
No, and I think that's I appreciate that quote. I hadn't seen it before, so I think that's very powerful. We'll have to I'll have to let that cook for a minute. But yeah, it's very much, and you also see, and I'm sure this is part and parcel of the same thing, that you have the increasing university departments, and you have this thing called autoethnography, and you have a guy who is who's a leftist darling who wrote a book called Man-Made Woman, Siren something or other, and everybody was expected to celebrate this and pretend that it was somehow politically relevant, and if you say anything about it, you're, a transphobe or a Deleuze-phobe or whatever it was.
Deleuze-phobe.
Well, because he also, I think the same person, Siren, who wrote Man-Made Woman, and I just know, I don't know for a fact, but I bet you anything the dress he's in is his mom's wedding dress. But we'll just leave that, the Freud of that to the side. But again, turning this navel gazing, turning something that is a personal proclivity into a unit of, not just a unit of analysis, but like something that's theoretically relevant. And then the expectation that that if you're to be a good leftist or be a good comrade is to somehow pitch this, celebrate it, pretend that it's a good thing to turn fetishes and just idiosyncrasies or mental illnesses into quote unquote gender identities that can then be touted and supported and virtue signaled and reified. And that's thrilling for people who have them. But I think all of that is very, I could see all of that in the quote that you read of Lenin. And when did he write that? Was that like in the 1910 or something? Or
I want to say 1914. Let me check.
1914? Yeah. So he could see that there, that this stuff, this kind of bohemian libertine. I'm sure maybe even this would surprise him. You know.
Oh yeah. Lenin would. And what's wild is I see like people printing Lenin's face on the trans flag.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, have you ever read Lenin? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't get where they even like. They have to somehow in their heads make a connection there. I don't understand where it is.
I don't think they do, Noah. I think what it is, because it's the same way they're going back with historical figures like, oh, Queen Elizabeth was probably trans, and you know they're going back and trans, which is what we do. Yeah, we go retroactively now. This is a thing to go back, and they're seeing it everywhere. They're just transing everything. That's why I say stop transing stuff that has nothing to do with your, you know, your gender games or pains or drama or whatever it is. But you can transfer anything into anything. Yeah, I also think, I don't know if you've ever had any anyway, I'll try to be quick. One of the things to do in literature studies, and of course a lot of these people come out of literature studies, is you explicate poems or books. And when I take a text, I could take any text I want, any movie I want, and it's all external reflection. I can be like, oh, I'm going to do a Lacanian analysis. I'm going to do a feminist analysis. I'm going to do a Marxist analysis. I'm going to do a formalist analysis. I'm going to do a Foucaultian analysis. I'm going to do, you know, and basically, and you think that, and then in their mind, since they do that, that must have been in the text itself rather than something that they projected in there through their application of their favorite concepts of themselves. And you can do that. I mean, you could trans anything. They love to talk about Engels. Yeah.
Let's get into that.
Abolish the family, ergo, sex isn't real. And it's, you know, that's how I think they're doing it. I think it's a creative exercise that they think is science somehow.
I think you're right. I think a lot of it is really, really vulgar idealism. Like to the point of like even calling it idealism is sort of an insult to old German
idealism,
philosophy, right? But
pseudo idealism.
They seem to take like a slogan, right? Abolish the family, which by the way, I've read a lot of Marx and Engels. I have never read that in them.
No.
But they somehow think they said that. Anyway, they take this and then they extrapolate out from it, right? Like, well, like you said, when I apply this framework to it, it means this, right? And they can't understand the difference between their subjective view and objective reality, right? And that comes about because of the change in bourgeois ideology to this sort of hyper individualism that sort of is what is perceived as just common thinking nowadays, right? So when when Engels, for instance, writes a book about the origins of the family, private property, and the state, how these come about, the relationships between men and women, and saying, you know, women are the first oppressed class, etc., they remove all of that content, replace it with their own individual history, and then assume that Engels has that same thing because they can't tell the difference between their subjective view and objective reality outside.
You know what they did know? They genderborged Engels. That's what they did.
100%.
And speaking of which, so when this, I think this wasn't this might have been, no, this was to Alexander's tweet. It wasn't to my promotion of this episode, but I'm sure. So this dude wrote, "Pick up a book, morons." I don't know if that's you, me, and Alex, all of us, I guess. Maybe start with this one. Gender norms and social relations are a product of material conditions. Okay. 1984.
Wait. A product of material conditions?
Yeah.
Okay, that's new on me. I don't know.
Well, I think he's trying to say like maybe make a base superstructure argument, Which is fine, but it doesn't mean that sex isn't real and that men can become women or women can become men.
Definitely not.
So that's the jump that they.
You can always tell when they start using the jargon wrong that what follows is going to be garbage.
Yeah, and then 1884, I guess is that when the book was published? Private property forced gender conform. Okay, oh my God, private property forced. Well, private property isn't a person, but private property forced gender conformance into society. Yes, because before private property, there weren't sexes. Okay,
right.
Policing
before that, men were going around carrying the babies.
And no one knew. No one knew. It was like, what's happening? There was no pattern to who got pregnant.
Right. Well,
sometimes it was the guy, sometimes it was the girl, and then something, Western patriarchy, heteronormativity, and all of a sudden we have to pretend that the penis is male, and Anyway, so so what else are we guilty of, Noah? Policing gender norms is completely antithetical to Marxist theory. You're frauds. Well, sorry. So I responded, and you let me know, because you're from Midwestern Marx, so your Marxism is probably I mean, I've done my reading, but I would defer to you.
My area of expertise is sort of the dialectics of abstract and concrete. This is actually this is one of Eddie's really big topics, but go ahead. It's fine.
Okay, so this is just for people who maybe hate watching, just because this is a little bit of education here.
You'll always get at least a few of those with me.
Yeah, which is fine. Well, they're welcome. Hi. And also for them, I could be the biggest bitch ever, so mean, so hateful. None of that changes the fact that the sex binary is real. Okay, so I tell this guy who told us we're morons and frauds, tell us you're an opposite sex mimic without telling us. Also, nice deference to authority that you butcher beyond recognition. Sex is material reality. Gender ideology is bourgeois libertinism dressed up as radicalism. Sex is real. Stating the obvious, wait for it, people, is not policing gender norms. Engels wrote about sex-based oppression, not your postmodern gender woo. If you actually read Origins of the Family, you'd know that he provides a historical materialist analysis of the family and the relations between the sexes, not gender identity, whatever the fuck that is. Sorry, people. But I do love a good laugh. And I do. I like to laugh. So please elaborate on how Engels supports trans women or women and the sex binary is a bourgeois invention. And he did. No, he didn't.
Imagine that.
He came back with another book. Lucky for me, someone already spent a shitload of time elaborating on this, so I don't have to. Oh, is that how it works?
You can just get a picture of a book.
He probably just Googled. Found this book, and then and plopped that at us. Because
I have no idea who Bob McCubbin is.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either. McCubbin probably.
But I do know, back in the militant gay era of the 80s and 90s, there was an old party member named Harry Hay, who was sort of trying to awkwardly shoehorn the fight for gay marriage into the analysis of national contradictions, right? Sort of saying it's a parallel to an oppressed nation within another one. It was very weird. They ended up kicking him out of the party, by the way, because
advanced algebra. Yeah.
Well, he was also a member of NAMBLA,
oh dear,
and an advocate of pedophilia. So you find out that a lot of the theorists about this had pedophilia somewhere in their background. Even Foucault, if we say, we don't believe that he was actually attacking boys, he was advocating removing the age of consent because it oppressed children.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. This is the thing, is that they're focusing on the gender binary, that terrible thing that we acknowledge that they're men and women. But the historically, you're quite right. Historically, the one that's been gotten the most attention is the arbitrary boundary between a child and adult. And of course, there is something to that, yeah, because girls can get their period quite young. So if you had the thing, you know, I don't think anyone would be like, oh, well, as soon as someone has the period, they're an adult, because, you know, that's problematic. So the law, society has to make a thing. Okay, it's 16 or it's 17 or 15 or whatever it is. But they have let's put a pin in that, because we'll save that when we for a bit when we get more into the Foucault and Butler of it all. But just to wrap up, Clanth, whoever this is. So my guess is I called out his bullshit, and he probably went to Google and typed in something, saw this book title, and then put it there. Now I don't give a shit what this guy says. And so I did not go in, and I have no idea what this book is about. Yeah. But he wrote so then he's like, lucky for me, someone already did this, so I don't have to go read the book and report back. Could we have this guy? So, and so I did report back. Unless this guy wrote that the sex binary, everyone is male or female, is the root of the oppression of same-sex attracted people. How exactly does this sad appeal to authority back up your gender identity nonsense? Also, nice dodge, whinge. See, I like calling them whinges. I asked you to elaborate on how Engels' book supports trans women or women, and that the sex binary is a bourgeois invention rather than a biological fact. Still waiting. Try again. He has, as of our going live, not responded to me.
Imagine that. What I find strange is that the sort of trans women or women slogan, all these things, they talk about, you know, gender stereotypes, gender norms, as if they're negatives. Yet the entire trans movement is sort of seeking to embody gender stereotypes and norms, right? Like a woman with long hair, wearing makeup, etc. Things that working class women have actually fought against for a very, very long time. That
if you like makeup, then you're a woman.
Right.
They just flipped it around from women should wear makeup to look pretty and whatnot. And I like, you know, I also like the makeup, but whatever. To no, that's bad. That's bad. But whoever likes makeup as a woman, that's fine.
It's wild to me. Like people, I know people have a hard time seeing the contradictions within their own thought. But when it's pointed out to you, I mean, come on. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's see. Anything else that I want to ask about how the left was trans before? We've already gotten into a bit of the queer theory, but let me see here if I can find my notes.
Well,
so what I want to know is that this is what I want, because you're a man, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So why do you think so few Marxists, and within that men, spoke up on this? Do you think it was fear, opportunism? And and I'm asking about men in particular because I've had, you know, I'm a woman, and you know, a newsflash, you know, and we've talked about the quote unquote trans maids of the left. But you're here, so we're going to talk about the woke bros. And so within that, do you think they really believe, how much of this is like they've convinced themselves of it, or off the record they know that it's, you know, that if a guy says he's trans, he's still a guy?
I think.
So what do you think about what in your position? What's your opinion on that?
I think, well, I can talk about my own, because I didn't touch the subject forever. I just held no opinion publicly, and you know, but I think it's a little of column A and a little of column B. I think it has this sort of religious fervor to it. Was it Rousseau that had this notion of a civil religion? I think, and it strikes me as very similar to that as part of wokeism, right? And within wokeism, being heterosexual, white, and male puts you at a sort of quiet place within the hierarchy. You're told to shut up and listen, sit down and learn, check your privilege, etc. Right? And so when you're in this situation and the narrative has already been established that if you say anything critical, it's actually because you're a bigot. You have a tendency to not say anything. That's just playing the odds there, right? Not everyone wants to be shouted down by a bunch of
not everybody can take it. It's
like,
not nice,
right? People with stringy pink hair or whatever. So there's that. There's also the fact that there are millions upon millions upon millions of dollars put into pushing this ideology, and they've made it politically inconvenient. And that was what it was for me. Look, I know the old party had its problems, but I'm sort of a loyal guy, right? The reason I am a communist is because I'm a loyal person. I'm loyal to my class, my family, my country, etc., right? And before the reconstitution of the American Communist Party, I joined the old CPUSA. Within that, if I wanted any chance at making positive change, I needed to never speak my mind on this.
Yeah.
Because there were powerful players with a lot of money that would have silenced me. And they ended up doing that anyway, based on that very innocuous thing I said. Let me give you an example of how that works. My very, very first meeting in my local club, right? I come there and I'm excited. Everybody's super nice at first. I mean, there's only a couple people, but they're super nice. And they're going around at the meeting, and before you speak, you say your name and your pronouns. Right. These people have known each other.
We've all been there,
by the way.
We've all been there,
and yet still have to perform the pronouns.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So it gets to me, and I'm like, hi, this is me. You can call me any pronouns you want. I don't really care. You can call me any nouns you want, like making a joke of it. Right. This created a half-hour lecture on why I need to take pronouns seriously.
That's violence.
Violens. Yeah.
Inside joke. People know. Yeah. I remember thinking, and this is the thing about the craziness of it all, just because it's so irrational. I remember, and maybe they still have them, I don't know. But because at Oxford, and a lot of universities are like this, you have the various departments. And so each department will have its own kind of office administrative thing. And it's also where the students will go for the administrative stuff. Every one of those offices that I was ever in Oxford had a little basket of pronoun pins on it. Yeah. And I'm like, what in the Veritas is that? Yeah.
Like if the beard or the voice that sounds like a cement mixer doesn't give it away, I'm a dude.
Yeah. I was like, and I have to tell you, I never wore one of those pins, and I don't think anybody ever got the pronoun wrong. But if they did, I wouldn't have given a shit. So I would have just been like, well, maybe they had, maybe I just manly that day, or maybe their English isn't their first language, who knows?
You know what? I've actually been yelled at for the opposite too. Back, like I was new to when I sort of rejoined the left, right? When I was little, like my dad was a big time union guy, right? Yeah. So I was around people all day. But I got really jaded and rebellious in my late teens, early 20s. I moved to Los Angeles and decided I was gonna smash the state with my music or something stupid.
There you go.
I came back after I noticed the Bernie and Trump movement really being what I considered the beginning of something, right? The sort of confused first baby steps towards change. Anyway, when I did that, I had no idea what any of this stuff was. It was massively confusing to me. And if you're confused, they don't care.
No. That's
anyway.
Well, then you get the also, don't you get the, like, it's not our job to teach you blah blah blah. You just have to know. You have to know all the rules. No, that's why I call neurotic big sister. That the patriarchy was undermined by capitalism a long time ago, and now we kind of had Big Brother, but now we have the neurotic big sister. And you
I
never
only
know.
like big,
You
like
never
big
know
they,
what's.
them. Yeah.
You never know what's going. You know? Yeah. So you can't question it. You just have to know. And if you make a mistake, it's always a reflection on a problem with you.
Right. It's
And
internalized bigotry. I didn't
yeah,
know I had.
yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Like,
I
so,
know it's batshit crazy. It's very, but you can't call it a cult because clearly it's not.
oh,
Anyway,
of course not. No, never. No, it like I have to recognize that the person to my left is a woman, even though they were born a man. But at the same time, the person on my right, when I say "Hey, brother" to them, I get yelled at for assuming their gender because they're they them. Like the rules conflict with each other, and when I was like just trying to get back into this, I was bombarded with it. Right.
And the fact that there are people who must enjoy this, because to me it's as tedious as all hell. Let alone the stupid part and the real world damage, the people getting their body parts chopped off and people getting, getting attacked, whatever. But it's just so tedious and takes up mental time, and having to requiring people to deal with this incongruity. It's such a mind F. But apparently there's people who really like it, I don't know if they're the obsessives or what, but they really like these rules.
Well, and this is why I say it rises out of the middle classes, right? And now that the middle classes are decaying way more rapidly, we're noticing an abrupt shift against it just throughout society. And, like, I hate to say it to all the people that, think Trump's a fascist or whatever, but his actions are accelerating it,
Yeah.
They just are. But within the working class, like if you're part of the 78% of Americans that struggle paycheck to paycheck every day, you don't have time to worry about this. It seems like piddling nonsense to you.
And I would agree with that, except for they're teaching it in the schools, Noah. Yeah.
Well, this is an issue.
That's
I
the
have.
thing,
and it's
encouraging 8-year-olds to think about their gender identity. No red flags there.
Right.
I told people a long time. I remember saying, like, if anyone ever encourages my kids to think about or explore their gender identity, I'm going to be having a serious talk with that person.
Well, 100%. And it's all over my son's public school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Here's a funny story for you. Because this is sort of the way they present it to them this is just how society is.
Yeah.
Right. They don't present it as a really, really contentious issue. They don't present it as some people believe this, some people believe that I could get down with even. Right. Give the kids different perspectives, but don't take a side, allow their parents to actually parent them. Right. But they don't do that. They just presented it as how things are.
It's normative. It's how it is, and it's normative. Correct. It's how it is, right. And if you're not with it, then you have then it's your problem. Like when
and they'll tell the kids to keep secrets from their parents.
Well, yeah. Or how about the Riley Gaines thing when the female swimmers at the colleges, and this happens. I mean, the sports is okay. The left, not that the sports associations are leftist, but I don't think there's been one sports association until the IBA with the main Khalif thing that is protected women and girls sports. And they try to make the girls feel bad. So if you have an issue with the literal dick in your changing room, that's their problem. They need to go sort out their trans phobia or something. And that's the progressive position. And you have women telling women this as well. I'm like, what?
That is wild to me.
That's why I asked you. Like, I agree with the whole the kind of longue durée and the apparatus and the anti-communism that flows through that. But it's just when you get to that type of thing, you're like, okay.
And here's the thing, like
that's like telling people to believe that up is down, and
I think about the like successful communists. I think about the Soviets. I think about my dad's generation, right? they would be throwing hands immediately if that happened to one of their kids. If that was my dad and there was a dude coming into my sister's changing room when she's in school, that dude wouldn't leave that changing room.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't. I mean, just being real. And now we're expected to say we're communists, we accept this. Look, it's about the safety of children. My son, because of how this sort of became normalized within public schools, my son came up with this brilliant scheme to sleep over his girlfriend's house, where they told her parents he was gay. They told us she was trans.
Yeah.
Thinking that, this is just how things are. They have to. You got an ironclad plan here.
Yeah.
And we snipped that out immediately. I mean, I had to be like pretend to be mad, but I was kind of proud that he was such an evil genius to try to like spend time with his girlfriend.
Here's the thing about I don't know. I don't want to fall into the stereotype that people who on the left, quote unquote left, are just nicer. And I think that nice can also become its opposite. That sometimes the no is way more nicer in the long run than just the yes, yes, yes. But can you imagine, you have a kid, and I've seen this because I sign up, I sign up I'm on the on-call list if they're really in desperate need for substitute teachers in the area because they're having problems for a variety of reasons, feeling that. And you walk on eggshells, paranoid you're going to get somebody's gender wrong, and to give kids that kind of power, not just kids, but adults, the idea that if you say something that I find to be whatever phobic, the fun I can put you through.
Right. It's crazy. That like
power trip.
How thin-skinned have we become? And really, it's another form of participation trophy. This like sort of need for verification of everyone around you, no matter what you've done. Right.
Well, I already told you. I put out a post that anybody that says anything that makes me at all upset is a terraphobe, and I will come for you. Terraphobia is real and it hurts. So
look,
and I'm working on a flag. I'm working on a flag.
Far be it from me to tell you your lived experience.
Okay, so in terms of why so many Marxists, and we'll just focus on them instead of the whole smorgasbord that goes under the signifier of the left. The empty or master or both. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I get confused, but that's a story for another time. Why they kept so quiet and focusing on the Marxists. We have the woke bros who are out there, monstering women and trans women are women, and they the Daniel Tutts of it all, and the Varoufakis and the the Sam Cedars and the those type of people. Maybe even who for whatever reason either they don't really believe it, but they think that it's the opposite of the right. Yeah. So the right has an issue with this, so we have to be all on board with it. Yeah. As a knee-jerk reaction that anybody that has any issue with trans with the LGBTQIA2 spirit, whatever it is just doing right-wing culture war and whatever.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
I'm done. I just want to know if there's anything else to add in terms of understanding. I understand the people who've been vocal about it, but the people who were silent about it, in addition to just the cost that you pay, if you even make an honest mistake, let alone being against it, but just want to figure out what's going on. Is there anything else besides that and the money?
There's money in it, right? What I wanted to like sort of, it's one of the things that really piques my interest is how you're immediately I'll put it into a story that happened to me. So I run a call-in show every Monday, right? Anyone can call in and talk live on stream, right? And I do like an opening rant about something that's bugging me. And so I did one on queer theory and gender ideology, and a guy called in, couldn't have been nicer. Super cool. He's like, look, I'm not one of these weird liberals. I'm not going to call you any phobics or whatever. But as the conversation's progressing, everything he says in reply to something I say is, you sound like a right winger. You sound like a Republican. It's like, well, answer the actual question. Like, actually comment on the substance. Like, address it. And he had it. I told him at one point, like, do you even know you're doing that? He's like, I didn't. Right? I think it's just people get so programmed with what they are told politics is that they got to follow the script, and they don't even realize they're doing it half the time. So I think a lot of it is kind of mindless because it's become, rather than actual politics, a subculture, right? It's become a way to sort of fit into a social clique. When I was young, that was, punk rock or
goth,
or emo or whatever, right? But these days, music has transitioned way past that. Kids listen to everything, but you still need that something to sort of replace the hole that hyper alienation leaves inside you, right? You're so disconnected from your own humanity in our era that you need something, anything. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's also, I can understand people can grab onto it because, the make yourself into a project and then you have to, and then, because of course I have Zizek on the mind because I'm going after the patriarchy feminist because I enjoy it. Sorry, but I'm working on a ideological critique of contemporary feminism, so I have that in my head. But they've hystericized themselves over gender identity, and if you even just kind of toy with it, there's this kind of buffet of thing. You have to figure out what your gender identity is. Then anything that you do, and you can have an idea here. Like, can you imagine if it encourages people to put gravity on every fleeting thing that goes through their mind and become obsessive of it? Well, does that mean this? I remember with my kids, I got a bit irritated when they put too much into sexual education. And then you have like 9-year-olds talking like, I don't know if I'm bi. Maybe I'm bi. I don't think I'm bi, but maybe I'm bi. They've hystericized. And I told my girls, I'm like, you'll know.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
A sort of neuroticism.
Don't worry about it. At a certain point, it'll be quite clear to you.
Right.
What you like and what you don't like. But I think there's something, and again, it takes up so much time. And in terms of the class of it all, I don't know if it was intentional or just a good byproduct, that if you're spending so much time and energy on that, there's so much less for the structural stuff.
That's very, very true.
And
it's a big time suck. Right?
I can't imagine wondering what every single thing I've done, or my kids, these crazy people, who buy this stuff and they don't want to gender their kid. So they're waiting, they're obsessing, trying to figure out what their toddler is, if it's a boy or a girl or they, them. I mean, my God, that just sounds like
child abuse.
It does sound like that, but also, I mean, how exhausting that would be.
No kidding.
You're making yourself hysterical. You're making your kids hysterical. I mean, like in a analytically, yeah.
Right.
Like what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean? What am I? What are they? What am I? What are they? Oh my God.
Well, and it's like their feelings and thoughts only take on a linguistic form after the moment they're had, right? And the you inside your head that your thoughts are made up of, that's sort of in unity with your body, right? This doesn't come from out a category that's been pre-created for you. You're just you, right? And so when you're constantly having to ask the question, well, is this me really me?
Yeah.
Is the body wrong somehow?
Or was I assigned? Am I a girl or was I just assigned a girl?
Right. Like that it makes, and we were going to get to this later, but I guess we could get on it now. It puts this predetermined thought as primary, as existing before your feeling, right? And your feeling is existing before your body. I mean, Marx says in one of the first things he wrote the Holy Family, right? That the brain is simply advanced matter performing its function, right? Meaning that who you are is the unity and diversity between thought and body. There's no possible way for your feeling coming from within your mind, the realm of idea, to somehow be wrong according to the body. They're just you. You don't need someone telling you, because you're, attracted to men and you like to speak in an effeminate manner, that you're somehow physically a girl and you need to change your body to fit that, to feel better. I mean, if you listen to the stories, that's not really what happens anyway, because there's really a deeper psychological issue. Now, I'm not a psychologist, far from it. Frankly, I barely understand Lacan. In that
well, that's on purpose. That's on purpose.
Well, yeah.
Because he wants you to be, he wants to create you again. Well, they say this, and I don't know if it's them being very pretentious or if it's actually the case that he wrote that way because he wanted he wanted it to be reflected in his writing that the big other does not exist. He's trying to hystericize, render the reader hysterical, like as you would somebody on the couch. And they say the same thing about I got into, I don't know if this is interesting to you. I'll try to keep it quick. I stumbled upon Zizek totally by accident. It was my second pregnancy, and my first pregnancy was fine, no problem. My second one, I was sick like a dog the whole time. I only felt halfway decent laying in bed. Long story short, I watched a lot of YouTube, and I was watching, I think, something on David Harvey, actually. And, it just goes into the next one. And all of a sudden, Zizek pops in, and I'm like, who's this guy? Like, what's going on here? So I became like this bad romance because I kept on thinking like, okay, what I'm doing has nothing to do with that, but yet I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure that out. But anyway, I bring that up because people would say at some point, I don't know how many, I read a couple of his books, and someone said, oh, well, he goes back and forth from the discourse from the position of the analyst, the pervert, and the hysteric. And I'm like, well, they should put that in the preface then, and let you know. Who knows that?
It's what let Carlos.
I'm like, is he, or is it no one wants to be an editor anymore? I mean, I don't know. Anyway,
I think honestly, like knowing the few academics that don't hate me that I've met, because I'm very critical of academia in general, but knowing that like even having to work with Zizek is a very daunting task. So maybe people are afraid to edit him.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think about, because and he has said himself that he also is full of neuroses and tics, and how could you can't be that productive? I think not. I think he keeps writing and talking so he doesn't have to be alone with him, the lack inside maybe.
Very much.
He has said before that how he writes is he can't sit down and think like, okay, I have to write this whole book. Whatever he's thinking about at that moment, he tells himself, okay, here's my idea or whatever. I'm just going to write about that. And then he writes and so at a certain point, he has all these pieces, and then they come together under some general title, and that's a book.
Now I know why I never made sense of that.
Yeah. And once you know that, and then you think, okay, that's fine, but then someone should edit him.
Right.
So because it's like I got this thing as like it was like I had to be like, maybe Zizek doesn't exist, because I got so into this. I'm like, I want to understand. And then there was the gambler's fallacy, and then I had to figure out Lacan, or kind of, and Hegel, and this. I'm like, okay, so he Lacanized. So he took Lacan avec Hegel and Hegel avec Lacan. Then he takes that and goes all the way back through everything in Western philosophy and all the way forward on through Marx. Marx was the symptom, all this type of stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot. And that's the thing, is that what I get with him, and this is a tangent, I'm sorry, is that I have no doubt there's a tremendous amount of stuff to critique him on. But most of the critiques you get him on are either on his on some of his curious political takes, or it seems to be the Zizek whatever the Zizek is in the person's mind.
You know what? what I've always found.
Anyway,
So
I don't know if people don't edit anymore, but it's crazy. I'm like, edit that, man. Jesus Christ. It shouldn't be 900 pages. It should be 300 at most. And put in the preface what the fuck that means. It goes back and forth between the pervert, the analyst, and the hysteric. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of like having a conversation with anyone on X about any philosopher. Like, you need to understand the categories, and when they're lying to you and telling you that they know this, like Hegel, and they don't understand a single archetype Hegel uses, right? Or they don't know the Lord and Bondsman, what that means. It's like trying to have a conversation with that, but you're on the other side of it. But is it so within the Institute? Carlos and I have like a back and forth pseudo argument about any usefulness within Zizek, right? And I say no use for him. I got no use for him. And Carlos, on the other hand, like he's like, look, we don't agree with him, but like I like a lot of his stuff. Anyway.
No, what I would say, my position on that is that I find it, in terms of ideological critique, fantastic fun. But but that's also a negative practice. Yeah, you don't get a positive politics out of ideological critique.
You don't, and
so there's a limit. And to realize
you also have to take into account that people's politics don't necessarily reflect their worldview and philosophy.
Yeah,
with Zizek, really for me, it's just that I get annoyed reading him. Right, like I feel like he's trying to do what Hegel did and sort of show you the transition between opposites as he's explaining something, right?
Yeah.
But Zizek is more like, hey, I think this. And then 2 pages later, psych, I actually think this. Like it's just like.
Well, yeah, no, there's a lot going on there. Again, there's a lot going on there. And I have a bad romance with him. I also have a soft spot with him, although I think that Putin is his objet petit a. I don't know. It's like show me some of the doll where Putin hurt you. I mean, he has I don't know what it is. But we don't want to get. I mean, I'd be totally fine with having another conversation about him. But all I say is my position on him is I find it, in terms of ideological critique, just fun. And also because at a certain point, I'm like, I spent so much time figuring this out. I'm going to do something with it. I mean, and it does seem to really upset the patriarchy feminists. So,
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. Okay. So we've talked about enough about how the left was transed. Just to recap, there was a lot of money in it. You learned quite quickly that for whatever reason, if you even try to get clarification on this, that the reaction was so like in your own life what you experienced. Yeah. So it's quite clear. I guess we have a pretty good idea about how and why the left was transed, both at the particular level, and you also did a really nice job talking about the kind of the anti-communist and the kind of bourgeois apparatus of it all, making the analogy between gender ideology and the Red Scare after World War II. Yeah, is that a safe summary?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sending me a private chat.
I mean, I don't.
Okay, cool. Yeah, listen, we're gonna take a tea break, people, because we got off because obviously with my 3 children, whenever I get a chance to talk to an adult, I'm all like, la, 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 so we're gonna take a 5-minute break or so. Then we're gonna come back in and we're gonna focus. We're gonna let Noah make a couple of key points that he wants to make about queer theory, in particular, how it has nothing to do with Marxism, although you can and should do a Marxist critique of it. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, 10 at the most, and then we'll be back with Noah on French, not French. Well, it is a lot of it's French, so that's fair. Queer theory / French theory. All right, people. We'll be back in 5-10 minutes. Okay, Noah.
Sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to put on some music here and maybe see what's going on with my green screen. All right. So people will be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to put on some music. If I can find my thing here. Let's see. What should we play? Gangster? Why not? All right. Back in a moment. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope we're all refreshed. I'm just gonna see if my green screen is working and all better. I don't know what's going on. I should have bought the more expensive one. See, it's kind of fluttering in the wind here, but I didn't want to. You know how it is. When you're starting out, you don't want to invest too much in the capital here. Let's see.
I didn't even do that. Like, I just like, oh, I got this bookcase and flag and Bernie Kosar jersey.
That also works. Let's see. No, for some reason, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, see, before I thought that you just had like one of those cool TikTok filters all the kids like.
No, I don't know why this is. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, I'll have to figure out. Who knows what's going on? I don't care. None. Fine. I just like green.
I was going to act surprised and be like, how did you get in front of that brick wall?
Yeah. Although I used this the other day and it seemed to work. Who knows what happened? I don't know what happened.
It's the light and the shadows. Honestly, I have a green screen. I don't use it often, but what'll help is pin the bottoms to the floor somehow to make it flat.
Yeah.
And you won't have the light coming back at the back of your head.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because when I did, and it's also because I have this camera. I got a slightly better camera, but it like really, this is like as zoomed out as it gets. And so I have actually the green screen the wrong way around. So it should be longer. So yeah, so clearly I did not think that through. Oh, well, who cares? People are not coming in to see my green screen, but one day everything will come together.
I feel like I want to start a show that's just called Green Screen. And I'll just play like different like images on it and just go.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome back. This is Morbid Symptoms podcast, and I'm happy to be here with Noah. Noah is our third Marxist man to come out of the gender closet. Is my title to come out, which basically just means speaking freely on the topic of gender ideology.
Wait, I thought this was when I was going to start identifying as Noette.
Well,
I'm on the wrong show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you if you want to do that, that would be a turn. You just realized, I don't know what happened on the 5-minute break, but you finally reflected and figured out what your true self is.
It doesn't bring up
the woman. You got to let that woman free, Noah.
Thank you, and thank you, Jenny Lynn. I am a pretty princess. No, it brings up an interesting contradiction within queer theory and gender ideology as this sort of amalgamation, like this, like sort of blob, right, within society that's sucking in things around it. Not to use a old term nobody would know because nobody saw the movie The Blob these days, but anyway, I loved it. So the contradiction is that
the Blob, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I loved all those as a kid. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was one of my favorites.
Body Snatchers.
That was good.
So you wake up and like everybody's like pretending that men can be women or women can be men, and you're just like, okay. But that's isn't that an interesting thing? No, talk about the psychology of it. Is that this is what not that we already know this, but it's just so obvious here. So you think about all this stuff that happened in COVID, and then this. It's like if you can get people to go along with this, you can get people to go along with anything. And it really shows that even if people who are skeptical, if enough people in positions of authority and people around you are acting like this is the case, then you're just like, okay, this is, you go along. And it kind of makes sense. This is coming out again. You have to get psychological a bit. I mean, the libraries could be filled figuring out this thing and COVID and all of that from the various angles. And we do want to spend most of our time on the Marxism of it all here. But it's this idea that, a belief without owners, because most people, I hope, off the record, one-on-one, probably don't think that there's all these different sexes and that, that the doctors really are assigning rather than recording. But they're all acting as if they do. So it's kind of like, and of course it's an important survival and evolutionary factor, you have to have an idea what others around you believe. So how often of what we do is based on not on our actual belief or maybe actually other people's beliefs, but what we think they believe. Yeah. And if I were just to plop down and find myself on or you, let's say we're together, we go on the Elon Musk thing and we don't make it to Mars, but we get through some wormhole and we end up in the planet, and we have to figure out quite quickly what we think the inhabitants of that planet believe. And then we'll go along with it. Yeah. It's kind of like that.
It really is. And it's all right. Not to sort of put on a tinfoil hat for a minute, but also I'm going to do that. We really, really need to be cognizant of Lenin, no matter what the question was, would always ask one question before anything else. Cui bono, who benefits? Right? And so when we ask that question, we need to answer a couple of ways. One is, when and where does this come from? And the answer is, it has its roots in the New Left period and the ruling class. Now, during the New Left period, the ruling class was interested in all sorts of social engineering and mind control with MK Ultra, psychological suggestion. I'm sorry?
Eugenics.
Eugenics, exactly. And all of this, we just pretend that they stopped, right? Because we don't have any information on the ongoing programs. But to believe such a thing would be naive, in my opinion, especially as we are in a far more precarious situation now than we were then. And they are in more danger now than they were then. So I don't know, not to really speculate much, but the notion that you can get all kinds of people to believe reality is something it's not, it doesn't just take this form, right? Like this coffee cup I'm drinking from right here, it says, "Be here now, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba." This is from the gift shop that used to be at Guantanamo Bay.
Oh my God.
Right? My wife collects.
Of course there's a gift shop at Guantanamo Bay.
Right. Well, back in the day, they were trying to sort of peddle Gitmo as almost a resort. Right? Like, oh, all the military there is having the time of their lives and they're, getting wasted at the bar all day and blah, blah, blah. Like that's actually
party all day or party all night, torture all day.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Enhance interrogate.
Yeah. But after everything comes out about Gitmo, then you realize that this image of reality was never real. It was something portrayed subjectively. So if your subjective portrayal or your performativity, according to Judith Butler, doesn't correlate to the material reality already existing, all it becomes is a lie. I mean, I could call myself a pizza. Don't make me a pizza.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Unless you say it's a pizza identity.
Right.
Who knows? Well, who we keep on thinking this is going to jump the shark because we have the furries. Because first it was just the trans, yeah. And most of us, even though maybe we watched, The World According to Garp, where everybody has one or when you just thought it was this really minute thing and you kind of know somebody. I mean, my family, my dad had there was someone who he worked with actually at a warehouser, and after Mount St. Helens blew and there was a big time they were off work, something happened while he was there, and he came back and he basically said, "Oh, I'm transsexual and I'm going to be living as a woman," and people are just like, well, whatever. and now it's and to this whole thing, and okay, there's furries and there's the people who identify as animals and people marrying each other. And you mentioned with how crazy it is, it's half the time I can't tell anymore if someone is being serious or not. It's is this a parody or is somebody really thinking this?
Right.
And you can't even. Sometimes it's really, I get caught sometimes someone will respond to something and I'll be halfway into being remember, and then I pause for a second, I kind of look at it and I look at their profile. I'm oh, this person is They don't really believe that. But today they could. Who knows, yo?
Look, I mean, you're not wrong. We all know what happened to that. What was that guy's name? Vish, right? Like he got caught having like a bunch of like animal porn on his computer or whatever. Like it's just all of this somehow leads back to these like really unhealthy fetishes. And there's not just a subjective element to how this has come about, right? With the fake left or the compatible left or whatever. There is a natural progression here as well, right? The sort of it also coming out of the New Left period, the sort of transgression for its own sake that began happening.
That we're not allowed not to like things anymore, Noah.
Right. And you know what? Like as far as individuals go, like if it's adults, like do your thing, that's freedom. I don't really care. I don't need to care about your life. You don't need me to care about your life, believe it or not. Right? Like you can go about living your life not caring what I think because I don't care what you think either. Who cares, right? Like it's a completely ineffective thing. But for me, and you know, like I said, I'm no psychoanalyst or anything, but the need to sort of propagate something that amounts to a lie, the lie I was just talking about, sort of has to take precedence over that not caring what other people think thing, right? Because if there's no one telling you and affirming that for you, then you're alone with your thoughts and you know it's a lie on some level.
Well, here's the thing, how insidious this is because the only way that a man can be a woman publicly is for everyone to pretend that he can be. Right. So you need people to go along with it. Yeah. To a certain extent, to go along with your all access pass to Ladytown, you know, to go along with the idea that there's two types of women. Like we have the category woman now, and that's the whole thing with the cis and the trans. So there's woman, and that's the abstract, and then there's cis women and trans women, but the cis women don't have any priority to that category of women over that, or they shouldn't, because we're oppressing, we're not allowing, we're apartheiding the womanhood,
And that's another thing that really bothers me.
But you know what, in terms of the recognition, you see what I'm saying? It requires that recognition. It's totally based on recognition and language games.
Right. Well, that's what I said.
Like, freak out. That's why they freak out at you. Yeah.
It's a completely linguistic thing, right? Yeah. It's sort of talking your way into something rather than acknowledging the objective reality, because there is no objective reality. There's only that talk, only that narrative, and the power to put that narrative on top of reality. But this is one of the reasons I sort of, I really regret not doing this sooner, because frankly, for me, the issue of men forcing their way into women's places, right, that make them feel unsafe, that is something sort of,
and the gaslighting,
right.
I don't know if you're covering the nurses. I'm sure it's happening in the States, and maybe we just don't hear about it as much. But there's nurses in the UK that their thing was like, look, we don't want to share our showers and sleeping quarters in the hospital with the trans doctors. And the union, again, you can imagine, they're transphobic. We stand by our transgender staff, and basically making these women feel bad for not wanting to share a shower and sleeping quarters with these guys who declare a female gender identity.
Look, maybe I'm
you have to be like, what? Doctors.
Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned for feeling this way, but if you're a man and you cannot stand up for the women that you're sort of related to in some way and help protect them, you're not a man at all. In my opinion.
I would agree with that.
Jenny Lynn's right. They are wizards. That's another inside joke. I hate wizards. You can't trust a wizard, right?
Well,
like, you never know what they got under that big long beard or those dresses they wear with the moons on it. You don't know.
Oh, you're just a genital essentialist. You just want to see what's under that robe.
I'm magophobic.
Anyway,
But
So
no, I'm serious. If you
yeah.
cannot protect people that maybe can't protect themselves, maybe they can, but if you're not willing to stand up for them, then you're not a man, period. And yes, that comes about through the gender norms of our society. But there's a reason those gender norms come about.
Now I want to
Right?
ask you on that note. Because I agree with you, and I've told my son, because I was pissed because you get your kids get to a certain age, and if you're like out, if you're at like at the mall, or if if I'm grocery shopping, or if we're at a restaurant or a theater, and they have, because they're always going to the bathroom. Yeah, at a certain age, you're like, okay, they can go to the bathroom by themselves.
Mhm.
But now that you don't know what they're going to be finding in their bathroom. Now I can't do that, or I don't feel comfortable doing it. And they're 12 and well, now they're 13 and 11. But this started a couple of years ago. It's like, now I have to go because you don't know if some rando is going to be there, asking him for a tampon or something.
Right.
It's and then they're supposed to know what to do. It's like, because you're because again, I know what they would do. They would just, you try to like, okay, well, whatever, and the guys would say, oh, well, they don't care. The girls don't care if we're in their bathroom. They're not going to tell you you're a dude.
They 100% care. All right.
It's like,
I hate to.
I would, but most people, if there's a guy in the
bubble.
bathroom, you don't want to upset him. You just want him to go, and you want to do your thing and get out of there.
Right. But and the bathrooms aren't even the only place, right? Sports isn't even the only place. What also really bothers me is like trauma.
Oh yeah, rape. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. When a woman has been traumatized by a violent man raping them, etc., whatever, forcing yourself into that place as a man is absolutely unforgivable. Again,
and then suing them if they're not accommodating.
Right.
There's guys who go around and sue.
Don't feel safe with you around. You are making their condition worse.
Yeah.
You can, you know what? Like, you want to be trans or whatever? Go start your own group. You don't need to bother them. Like it's
that's not affirming. They don't. They never want that, Noah. They never want that because that reinforces the fact that they're not women just like we are. They don't want it. They don't want it. There's been a couple of times, I don't know if it was swimming or if it was cycling, that to get around this issue, they had an open category. Yeah. Or they had a trans category. And guess how many of the trans athletes, the trans women, quote unquote, trans women athletes wanted to participate in that category? Zero.
Of course, they wouldn't have an advantage, right?
Well, also because it's like they want to say it's like making black people go in the black only bathroom. They say this shit.
The comparison to the fact that black people were enslaved is fucking insane.
Yeah. Or the racism. Oh, the racism of these people. All the time it will happen is inevitably when I used to fight with these wingnuts rather than just mock them. I'm like, try to like have a conversation with them to see when I stupidly thought that maybe they could see reason. Or I realize they just don't want to, they're trolls or whatever. But you kind of can suss out if somebody's just yanking your chain. But how many times that we've heard, well, what about black women?
What about them?
I'm like, they're women. Black women, Chinese women, tall women, fat women, gay women, straight women, all women. You know who's not a woman? Trans women. But they'll say it like they got you. Well, what about black women? Well, what about them? They're women.
What's interesting to me is that, so there's this like implicit sort of, this is always the way it was within the aesthetic, right? Within the aesthetic, the movement, for lack of a better word, because it's not really a movement, it's more the sort of vanguard of bourgeois ideology. But there's this implicit, like, this is always how it was. Like, I was always a woman, etc. But if you look into the actual theory, this is a very subjective thing, right? Even going back to the beginning of the post-structuralist and the people like Derrida, queering something and queering a place meant intentionally smashing the binary in half. So there's no longer you're gay, I'm straight. There's we're all on a spectrum. Like there's no way to categorize, and I'm going to get in there and ruin that on purpose. And a lot of gender ideology comes out of this, right? Very, very consciously wanting to disrupt the social norm because they consider the social norm oppressive. Right?
Yeah,
Not because
by
we're
being there.
exploited
Yeah.
working class people,
Yeah.
not because our standards of living are getting low,
Mhm.
but we are not free as individuals.
Mhm.
And that's
Get our
sort of
cock
an
out on the
inherent.
street. If I can't ride with my cock out on a bike, I'm not free. Or my tits out, whatever it is. But you know what I mean. I mean, I used to have I used to enjoy the pride play things, but now it's just like trying to see who can be the most transgressive. You know, it's like I don't want to see any twig and berries, okay? And I'm straight, but I don't want to see other people's twigs and berries. You know,
right? That's another contradiction. It's either like,
or
oh, it's a
woohoo.
wholesome
No
thing
woohoo's
for
always good
bring the
either.
kids, or it's like a fetish thing where people are having sex in public. Like it can't be both at once, guys. And the fact that you want to bring children around people literally having sex, I don't know. Maybe the rightists are right when they say that they're against that.
Okay, but I want to quickly ask you something. So
Sure.
This might seem like a gotcha question, Noah, and maybe it is. So I have one theory is that especially with the woke bros, but not just the woke bros, the guys who know that this gender stuff is bullshit and don't play the game, but find it hilarious to watch the feminists get upset about this. Because, and most of the patriarchy feminists don't want to acknowledge how some of this does very much come out of some feminist philosophy and theory. You know, the idea that, you know, gender's a complete, it's a construct all the way down. You have feminists who thought that until technology frees women from the biological burden, they'll always be unfree and second-class citizens. So there is this transgenderism, to escape natural constraints. There is this that is in feminism. They don't want to admit that, but I think because there was this overreach of this kind of mean girl, boss girl, neurotic big sister feminism with the toxic masculinity and check your privilege, that I think that some of the guys and the women who went along with that find it kind of funny to be like, oh, well, what?
Like now you're getting your comeuppance kind of deal.
Do you think there could be some of that to be like, you know, at least for a while it was funny for them to watch the you know, the kind of lib fems and the patriarchy feminists go, you know, like, it's all the patriarchy, this is patriarchy, and then have them be like, well, look what this person said. Oh, well, they're not a real feminist. Well, they say they're a feminist and they're not a real feminist. Like, well, okay. You know?
Yeah.
But so I think there could be some of that too.
I draw this all back to sort of like the transition of popular politics to subcultures, right? Because in the early 2000s, the libertarian thing was really at its peak, I think, in America. It's been on a downhill slope since then. And anti-feminism was part of it, right? Because it was seen as a leftist thing. And I think that milieu specifically, like I remember them doing stuff like that, right? Like, oh, now you guys know how it feels, blah blah blah, right? And they just loved watching it, kind of like the ruling class wanted the Soviets and Nazis to destroy each other at the beginning of World War II, right? Within actual Marxism, however, I haven't really found any of that. It's less because like maybe it's just where the spaces I'm in, but feminism as a category isn't talked about so much as the women's question within Marxism and what's the modern form it takes, right? So like that category, feminism, inherently like began in the New Left period to really take on these reactionary turns, right? Like it's the fault of men, it's not class society, etc. So
it's all porn. Everybody wants the single bullet, yeah.
Oh God,
no! It's all porn. It's fault, or it's the patriarchy's fault, or it's the AGPs, and that, there are rich and powerful AGP, autographic men who embrace this, but also make money off of it. So Martijn Rotblat, the Pritzkers,
the Pritzker family, yeah.
So it's there is that, but people, again, and I think Marxists get this way sometimes as well, because of course, it's easy to point out when someone else isn't being dialectic. They want to kind of pluck out this one thing and be like, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're really going to figure out, to the extent we can figure out, how the frick this happened, it's going to be, the totality it's never going to fit together perfectly, but it's not just going to be, oh, that's that one thing. But for porn, we wouldn't have, what was his name? Leah Thompson, pretending Leah Thompson's a woman. Yeah. But for porn, or but for patriarchy, or but for autogonophilia. It's like, well, like, no, again, you ask, who benefits? That's an important question to try to tie these things together, because the ruling class wants all kinds of things, but this took off like a motherfucker. Yeah. I was like, Jesus,
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Not everything works so well for them. I was like, okay. People
something
really
is nowhere, that
who knows, there were so many guys that had women stuck inside them. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah, did you notice women's studies is now gender studies, by the way?
Or so many girls who want to live their gay boyfriend fantasies. Yeah, because who doesn't? I mean, if you have a really great gay not gay, but gay friend, if you're a girl, usually it's, unless they're like really ugly, at some point it crosses your mind, oh, it's too bad that. Now it wouldn't occur to me to cut my tits off and pretend I'm a dude, but things happen. So what did you want to say? Sorry.
I don't remember.
Sorry. Now we were talking about follow the money, thinking about this dialectically rather than blaming it on porn or patriarchy or feminism.
It really grinds my gears that people who call themselves Marxists can have such a one-sided and metaphysical view. Right, where you're able to just blame one thing, and that's sort of what the wokes will do. Right, they'll say, "Oh, you're actually not criticizing coherently. It's all just you trying to cope for the fact that you're some kind of bigot." Right, like, well, yeah. All you're really doing at that point is running away from the question. Right, in order to actually engage in a Marxist analysis, we need to know all of the different sort of aspects that make this up. What Marx calls unity and diversity, right? The sum of many diverse determinations is what makes something concrete and real. And if we don't understand how those determinations affect each other, then we're not understanding the question concretely. We only have an abstract notion of it in our heads, and it's inherently limited.
Yeah. And what you just talked about takes time.
Very much so.
And you have to rely on others, because we can't know all this stuff.
Yeah, and it takes the development of the issue in the real world, right? Like, we couldn't analyze, for instance, the middle classes in 1945, right? Because they hadn't developed into what they became. We can only really analyze them and why it happened and how it happened and what we should do now that it's sort of going away, that it's
the same thing with the PMC, wouldn't you say?
Exactly.
That you see that now, and they were not they're going to hold on to and I think maybe this is also a part of it, and there probably has always been this kind of secular Puritanism, but now it's like the woke bros and the trans maids and the whatnot who want to like they're really concerned that not just that you act the right way, but that you want to do what they want you to do. It's like, you just can't follow the rules. You have to believe it and love it. And I'm just like, that seems new. That's again, the father, when there was the rule of the father, as far as I understood it, well, at least how I think about it conceptually, is it was just like, here are the rules. They lay down the law and you should follow them. And if you overtly break them, then there's going to be a consequence. It wasn't like, you really need to love the rules, love the role you have, really want this, do this, be super excited about every sexual proclivity that's been freed from heteronormativity, white racist patriarchy, or whatever it
Right.
That
And
seems new to me.
what's interesting
But-
is like, if I have it correct, and maybe I don't, it's been a long time since I've read this, and like I said, I'm not sure I understood all of it. But that there comes an end to that father, right? And sort of surpassing it to achieve your own selfhood. And in doing so, you're going to be reproducing the same thing in the future. But what they seem to be doing instead is trying to destroy the notion of the father itself, right? Which really destroys society itself, according to this kind of analysis. But they openly say they are trying to destroy society itself.
Check out our top shelf comments. Hi, Kushlik, the movable phallus of the left.
Somebody is definitely reading.
That's way too Lacanian for me.
Right.
I learned all my I'm gonna totally out myself here. I've learned all my Lacan I got from Zizek. So because I'm clinical, no. I'm all like, that's why I can say, calm down, people. It's just ideological critique. It's not nom.
Right.
So, it's like, if you don't want to let go of your patriarchy, enjoy, whatever. They get
What's
mad.
it? What is it? Like the resentment of the phallus creates what is it that Butler said? Like, it's something like the resentment of the phallus is what creates a negative
Look at this one. I'm sorry, it's late here. Or later here.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
But I guess you could say it's a fallacy. Kush, look at you with the humor, you naughty bird. Okay.
I am a sucker for like puns and dad jokes. It's kind of my thing.
Anyway, yeah. So let's because I know you don't have all day. What do we want? Let's see what we had on our menu for the queer theory part to see if we've touched on it somewhat. What did I have? Okay.
I could just give us like a
So I said queer theory, bourgeois woo disguised as radicalism. So you've probably noticed, this is my spiel. I'm not talking to Noah, I'm just talking to you people. That any challenge to gender ideology gets deflected with appeals to queer theory, as if invoking Butler's name was a mic drop, or Foucault's. But what, if anything, does queer theory have to do with Marxism? So how queer theory and gender ideology emerged, you've touched upon that. So we've done that. Why queer theory is fundamentally incompatible with historical materialism. We kind of got on that. Does any kind of eye dotting you want to do on that?
Yeah, let's just say that queer theory develops out of these middle class sort of postmodern, all the posts, right? Post-structuralism, post-colonialism, post blah, 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 right? That really is less about it, and it does come about with like this sort of middle class fixation on everything sexual, but also comes about as a sort of break with any sort of like necessity. So while historical materialism is founded on a materialist analysis, these sort of more linguistic theories diverge, and I'm losing my train of thought as we speak.
It's all right. It's not easy stuff. Yeah, they don't make it easy.
Right. Okay, I'll put it a little differently. Historical materialism is the notion that men create their own, or people.
It's all right, man. I'm not gonna jump on your throat for that. It's okay.
It's kind of a joke. Like Marx said, men create their own history, but not as they see fit. Right? We do it within objective conditions that are transmitted to us through history. So the present can only be based on the past, and the future can only be based on the present. Queer theory instead sort of navel gazes about social constructs and binaries, and attacks social norms in order to liberate the individual, which is a really what Marx and Engels would call petty bourgeois way of looking at things. It's a lot more normative than or prescriptive, if you're not familiar with that stuff, than Marxism would ever be. Marxism's only prescription is the sort of motor of history, right?
Yeah, and I think that very much so, is that, and we forget that, and I think Hegel was, maybe he's the one who pointed this out, or maybe, I don't know who, it doesn't matter who it was, that, you know, our concepts are always lagging, are always behind the current the current concrete conditions. Yeah, but there's no way of getting around that. We're always going to be using concepts that are, again, to use the dialectic, that are fading away or passing over into their usefulness is going to dwindle. Then you may have to add, if it's just a quantitative change, then maybe you add the neo or the post. But at a certain point, if there's a qualitative shift, at a certain point, you're going to probably have to have a different concept, or you have old wine, you know, new wine, old bottles. So that's one thing, that we're going to always be at a lag for this. And so that's another reason why it takes time to get a handle on things, because the concepts we're using didn't really prepare us for, you know, for people acting like sex doesn't matter, but doesn't exist, really. We're prepared for that.
Yeah.
So we're running behind. But I think also, in terms of a Marxist analysis of this, is to look at this, be like, okay, well, this queer theory is a thing. It did arise. It did take root and go various places. To understand why that is, what was appealing about it, which, of course, there's the financial part, there's the political instrumentation or weaponization of it. But I think also the idea that, what does it tell us about the kind of the current states of the subjectivity, of a level of alienation, that this stuff found such a fertile seedbed. Yeah,
I think this is one of the aspects.
I don't know the answer to that.
No. I mean, who does? I'm writing a paper on this right now. And one of the things I really focus on is why it seemed to take root in the middle classes and those sort of around the middle classes, right? So understanding the class nature of how this develops is key. It's also taking root at a time when the middle classes have just turned a corner, right? They're no longer on the come up. There's no longer a bright future in front of them. In fact, it's precisely as the generation after the boomers are realizing that there's no future here, that something big has to shift. This is the time that it takes root. And it's at a time when, I don't know if anyone watching, if you're familiar with Marx's theory of alienation, right? It's a really central thing. Without that, nothing else would have followed. But what makes us human at our most essential level, what separates us from everything else, is our labor, our ability to look at nature, hold up a sort of changed image of it in our mind, and then do labor and change that nature. We have been,
language, I'd say.
Well, this develops language, right?
Yeah.
The need to continue improving it. It even starts developing our thumbs, all that.
Yeah.
It's what makes us human, right? For Marx and Engels. And so at the beginning of capitalism, we are separated from that humanity through the need for capital to accumulate. We need to sell our labor to someone else, and the product of it is no longer ours. It belongs by rights to someone else, right? And now we're at this point in the 21st century where it's not even that person that we've spoken to who owns it. It's not even the person above them. And it's not even the financial, like the bank that they got a loan from. It's these giant financial cartels that control everything, expand the money supply, and steal the value of our money from us while it's in our bank accounts, right? Devaluing it, meaning they're hitting us on both ends, right? Both through our labor and through the product of our labor, which we understand as money now. So I call this like a sort of hyper alienation. And this leads to the need to sort of fill it in some way, to reconnect with our humanity. Now, the actual objective way to do this is through class struggle, the ruling class sort of, as it crumbles, us taking advantage of that and toppling it, right? But when you're in the middle classes, it's really easy to not see the necessity of that right up close, right? Like even your most quote unquote reactionary, which not really, Trump supporter knows that they need more money to live, right? But in the middle classes, you don't need that. You don't have that necessity. And so you can sort of look for something else, right? And get caught up in all of these sort of logically sound within their own system ideas that end up having a false premise to begin with, right? The site of actual social change is not, liberating an individual's ability to say they're a woman or a man, right? The site of social change is by definition social in nature.
Yeah, it's not about women can't have boundaries. Oh, it's so funny. I think that if I were to ever have do one of those spoof things, like try to pretend, I would love to get a T-shirt that says Chesterton's Fence and go and just wear it to queer studies seminars. Sorry.
You can get a doctorate in these things, by the way.
Sorry?
It's funny to me that people get doctorates in that stuff, by the way.
Oh, God. Well, that's also a market, yeah. So you have this.
Yeah.
I think that's all. I think it's starting to chip away, and that's going to be one of the things. And not that I'm ever happy when people, in general, lose their jobs, but some of this stuff is just, it's like, or you shouldn't be. It's one thing if you get if there's an elective or a certificate or maybe even a bachelor's degree, but a PhD in some of this stuff, it's because then you have to keep on producing it. Yeah. So it's inflationary. You have to.
That's the circuit.
You have to come up with a new gender identity or a new privilege or a new oppression or a new this or a new that, and it's just. And then you divide it up into, gender studies and women's studies and African American studies and this studies and that studies. And then you pretend that only people who actually fit that box can say anything about that. And if you can't question it, unless you have, the racialized essentialities or whatever, we're back to essentialism again, but in a good way, I guess. Oh yeah, it's crazy. But it became a business. Yeah,
it did.
And you gotta sell, you gotta have a variety of things.
Look, philosophically, it is the same as the old race.
They all end up in human resources and are neurotic big sisters.
We are at Midwestern Marx, we've always called them the HR department of society.
And I want to be sure that's a man can act as a neurotic big sister as well, just as a woman can take on the patriarchal function. So don't come at me, people. But they're mainly women.
At the end of the day, you hit on something really important. It's that philosophically speaking, ideologically speaking, it's the same exact assumptions about how reality works as race science used to have. That there can be no inherent connection between humans of different types. We are fundamentally different and therefore always at odds.
Yeah.
When Marxism actually shows a process of coming together, that's the whole I have a theory called the American trajectory, how we become American, right? No matter what your skin color is, in this era, we're all sort of the children of Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Revolution, right? But that's a whole nother bag of bananas. You mentioned something else I wanted to hit on.
We have about 15 minutes, I think. 10 minutes before you have to go. No, I'm asking you. Do you have about 10 minutes before you have to bounce?
Yeah, I should probably go soon. Yeah.
Okay, so whatever you want to do, however you want to fill this, and then I'll stick around and go through some of the comments and questions. And if there's anything specific to you, I'll let you know.
Cool. Yeah.
So what do you want to do? Take us home, Noah.
I do. So I did want to say this from the beginning, that you mentioned that this is sort of starting to be chipped away at, right? That we're seeing a very strong and fast rise of wokeism, and now we're seeing a pretty fast reduction of it. And you asked me earlier why I thought the left sort of got taken in by it. And I think it developed into a place.
Let's be real. They were Borged.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
All the institutions, like the institutions and the what you call the compatible left and all that, from the Democratic Party all the way to the PSL.
Yep.
Who will tell you trans women are women, and they're
Right.
very
Who do
oppressed.
like drag shows on National
oppressed.
Women's Day?
No one's more oppressed than a man in a dress who's not being allowed in the ladies' room. You bigot. Sorry. No.
Right. Forget about slavery and Jim Crow and all that. But I think that a lot of this, it rises out of the culture that develops in the New Left period of tolerance and this sort of inherent open-mindedness that leftists sort of see themselves as having, right? And it sort of came about. Sorry, my wife just texted me and I lost my train of thought.
All right.
And it sort of develops into this, like, everyone gave them a chance, right? And then it quickly develops into a very, really, really, really hard-nosed closed-mindedness that what begins as, trying to be open to everyone ends up being open to no one if you don't have the correct thoughts anymore.
Yeah, well, isn't that a very I'm sorry, I'm sounding like, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I was happy when I understood that. It's a quantity thing, yeah, that if you push anything you push to a certain extent, at some point at the margin turns into its opposite.
Oh,
so
100%.
Like, you have inclusion that leads to exclusion.
You even have the cause becoming
anti-racism,
right?
Racism.
You have the cause becoming the effect, right? Like it begins the effect becoming the cause. Sorry. Like it begins in these bourgeois institutions, but it disseminates down into people who then reproduce it, right? They were the effect and then they become the cause, reinforcing the entire structure going forward. So they prop up those bourgeois institutions at the same time it's coming down to them. One of the ways they do that is by pretending this is all like organic and Citigroup, Raytheon, and Boeing.
It's all about
just actually pandering to them.
People. It's about the poor teens, or it's about the trans kids. Yeah,
right.
That's what it's about.
Don't get me started on that.
It's about the trans kids. It's not about the money, and it's not about the power, and it's not about the power trips, and it's not about all. No. Don't look there. It's about the trans kids.
I think that's a great place to end it.
I can't be a 60-year-old dude who finally lets if I'm a 60-year-old guy, like Will Ferrell's friend, who he modeled how to respond to that when you're 60, when your friend of 40 years tells you he's a woman. That if that's the case, that I'm really a woman, and I just was in the closet, and I'm going to come out as a woman. That also means that woman, I was a woman when I was 4, when I was 3. When I was 2, and wouldn't it have been nice if I didn't have to go through wrong puberty? I mean,
we get into the child abuse there.
Trans kids are the human shields of the whole, of the actual kind of libidinal economy of this stuff. And old dudes need there to be trans kids.
Right. Well,
messed up.
Exactly, and it goes back to Foucault, right? And the sort of rearranging of who is the oppressed and oppressor, right? In that new way he did, where it certainly wasn't about his degenerate behavior.
Oh no,
of course not. He cared about the sexual liberation of children. We were oppressing them for not allowing them to have sex with adults, which when you actually put it that way sounds gross, right? But look, it ends up to child abuse. These hormone blockers and stuff like that have long-term side effects that they do not tell people about in the narratives, right? The caller I referenced earlier was like, well, I heard that the only side effect is that, you have less bone density. And I'm like, no, why would you think that? Like, look this stuff up, man.
Well, it's the idea that people, and again, I'm wondering about how can you be so alienated that you don't know basic biology unless the school sucks? Because it's like, does anybody not, unless they don't have kids, they don't remember what puberty is like. It's not only that your sex parts get bigger. That's not the only thing happening during puberty.
Right.
You're literally stunting these people's development. and sterilization and all this stuff. And once you go down this road, this is what, when they actually have studies that show if you socially affirm, then it's more likely that you're going to end up on puberty blockers. And if you get on puberty blockers, it's more likelihood that you're going to go on the cross-sex hormones. It's more likely you're going to get surgeries. It's more likely that you're going to die like 10, 12 years earlier.
Mhm.
It's basically, here's what it is, people. And why the scientists, again, this is also when you have to, it's hard now to have any trust in any authority. Yeah. When you have doctors telling you this bullshit, it's like, it's not healthcare, it's vivisection. I said this for like 2 years now. Dr. Genderstein vivisection clinics. Stephen King, who's a woke bro, it should have been a Stephen King novel. The Gender Clinic for kids. It's a horror show, yo.
Yep. I think that's a great. Look, I'm sorry, but I do have to run.
Okay,
Tara.
sorry.
No,
okay,
it's okay.
30 seconds. What do you want to say, Noah? And let people know. Well, I'll also put in the video details.
Sure.
How to check out Midwestern Marx and your YouTube page and the ACP.
I just thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure. Anyone interested in my work can find it at midwesternmarx.com or in Red America, which is the theoretical journal of the American Communist Party, of which I am on the executive board. I'm also on X at Khrachvik, my last name there, right there. Yeah, there you go. Thank you again for having me.
Well, thanks, Noah. It's been great. Time flew. We'll have to, you have an open invitation. And of course, if there's something I could be of interest or funny to have on, you can, of course, invite me and I'll be there with bells on, not literally. And maybe we'll have a nice green screen at some point and then we can have real fun. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I know it's not an easy thing to do. Noah has to go. Thank you, Noah. Everybody go check him out. I'm sure most of the people who've been watching this are familiar with him. And it looks like, who knows, you're the third Marxist man. Maybe we're starting as a power, courage breeds courage. And thank you, Noah. And I'll check you later.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye. All right, let me see if my mouse is going to work. Okay, so people, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take like a 5-minute break because one of my kids is calling me. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go through, I'm going to look through the comments to see if there's any comments I need to put on the screen, if there's any questions or whatever. For those of you who want to see, who want to stay around for that, please do so. I'll be back in 5 minutes, 10 at the most. But I do understand if you want to sign off because Noah's gone. If Noah was what brought you to the yard today, that's fine. But I will be back in 5 minutes to go through the comments and questions in the chat. So if you want to hang out for that, hang out for that. I'll be back soon. Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. So let's see. I don't know who's here, but we had a great time chatting with Noah, hearing about, he came out of the gender closet to give us his thoughts on both gender ideology in particular, where it came from, why it took root, who benefits, how we need to his contribution in terms of how to get to the crux of the matter in terms of how we got here and moving forward. So let's see what the comments were. I'm going to go from the beginning, and anything that's not, I'll put anything on the screen that's not going to get me in trouble with the digital overlords and that isn't just mean. If it's just a mean comment, then I'm not going to put it on there. Okay, so Indiana Park Wars Productions, let's go. Yes. Jerry Jacobs, hi, Jerry. Comrade Kate, greetings. Hi, Comrade Kate. Jenny Lynn, Jenny Zezer, hello. I'm Putin Borg, 6 of 9. Yeah. It's good. Let's see. Russian bot since 2016. Yeah, 100. Let's see. I thought that was great, Noah. So it must have been his opening salvo. Wade. Judging by Noah's composition of 18% sawdust, 45% lumber, 70% caffeine, and 20% nicotine, Noah's pronouns are lumberjack. I wonder if that adds up to 100. I'm not even going to make myself do that. Lol. Let's see. Let's see. Going through Derrida. Yeah, that might have been who he was talking about. It's been a while since I went made the rounds in queer theory. And of course, there's a lot of people who are part of the queer theory canon who never presented themselves that way because this came about later on. So let's see, of course, there's a lot of Foucault. There's Derrida's in there. Who else? Butler. I'm not, maybe Desaad, Marquis de Sade. Anyway, but the philosophical, the people that they rely on for the philosophical base is a lot of Foucault and Derrida, and then they can use the name as well. Let's see. It's called sesquipedalian when someone tries to use big words just to sound smart. So, well, you just did that, Arcane Eclectic. See, and if I try to say that, I'm going to sound stupid. So I'm just going to leave it here for people to read themselves. Sesquipedalian. See, I did anyway. The mother of invention. Let's see. Yay, continuing from origins. Okay, hi, Daniel. Or Daniel. Ghaznavi. That's somewhere in Afghanistan, isn't it? I don't know. I am technically a geographer. So it says in my DPhil, let's see. Alex is great. Yeah, he is. Alex is our secretary. He is. He should be running that party. He didn't hear it from me. Not that the people who are currently the leadership of the party aren't fantastic, but it's in his bones. Yeah, he's very committed and passionate and a very serious dude. We love Alex. Neither do you. I don't know what that means. Let's see. He could be talking to somebody else. Let's see. ACP. Arcane Eclectic. I have a generic response for the overbearing, domineering gender queen. Silence! Your gaslighting skills are useless here. There you go. They're melting. Just another elite ideology to hate the masses while pretending to be pseudo-radical. It's fascist. Yeah, it's not. I can't think of anything good that's come out of it except for, I've made some new friends. When you have to search people out and being like, isn't this gender stuff crazy? Let's see. Arcane Eclectic. People can think they are whatever they want to and identify as anything they choose to in their own heads, but don't they dare try to manipulate and threaten me in some vain attempt to have me adopt and validate their false reality. Yeah, on pain of social, ruination and pronoun mobs and employment tribunals and all this crazy stuff. You can find yourself being a nurse who's having to go to court in the employment tribunal because you don't think that you should have been accused of being transphobic when you just were asking for there to be, as there always was, a woman's only shower and changing and sleeping room. Because also in hospitals, you have to sometimes, there's like they have the cots because you have to take a little nap. Let's see. Danielle, that's the fascist element, conform to live delusions, discarding objective reality is the aim. Let's see. Jenny Lynn, Elon boosted this Lord of Frenzy lady post on my timeline where she compares Trump and Mao in the title. The right-wing knee-jerk reactions are hilarious in the replies. Yeah. Danielle, so they can clutch their pearls and say Zelensky was a nice guy, Trump is a bully. Look, as an example, without recognizing that he represents an actual objectivity. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Kushluk, I hope I'm saying that right. Are men and women not materially different? They are. Well, I mean, we're both humans, but different varieties, yeah. And this is true that, and it's kind of weird when people will make the like one of the crazy people who was going crazy to either to Alexander's post or to my post or Noah's repost of this episode promo, trying to say that somehow trying to make the thing that the guys who go in for the full gender kit, like get their thing cut off and inverted and get the fake the penis lined or colon lined perineum, that they should be allowed in spaces, as if the only thing male on the male body is the penis rather than the whole thing. We're a unit. Yeah. And also as if a woman is a castrated man. I mean, it's just so bizarre, but he thought he had a point there. Let's see. Fluid. As soon as someone said woman, that's when the woman came into being. Marxism bro. Yeah. Until the word, yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. Isn't that the first? Wait a minute. Is the first thing in Genesis? Is it the word or is it light? Because I think, because the word is also, of course, important. Anyway, whatever. Let's see. Big facts, yeah. The classic Noah point, okay. Let's see. Yeah, that was great. I didn't think they'd read between its trope in their head being around. Engels was on. My favorite is Bob D. Knob. Let's see. Arcane eclectic. My take on sexuality is intrinsically simplistic. How about we all keep our eyes and minds off what consenting adults are doing in their own bedrooms? Yeah. If only. Remember when it used to be in the bedroom, but now it has to be out and about? The idea that it's oppressive. So if a guy, if a guy's into cross-dressing, and somehow it's oppressive if he can't be a full-time cross-dresser in every situation. And I think it's so hilarious because clearly there's no money in nudity, because the nudists have a better claim to oppressive norms than men, than men complaining that only females can be women, or women complaining that only males can be men. Because the nudists, I mean, they could say like these oppressive Puritan clothing norms. Why should I have to be? Why should I have to hide or limit my most authentic self? I'm most happy when I'm naked. No one's advocating for that. Although, some of the libertine antics, with the guys like the want a bicycle and the nude and all that stuff. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I agree. And at a certain point, why it became oppressive to have certain activities be relegated to the private space rather than the public or workspace is why that boundary got queered. I do not know. Let's see. Gonna go through here. Seeking positive essence. Yeah. That was a good episode. I remember Ryan Long video when wokes and racists actually agree on everything. Yeah. I don't know what happened to him. Is he still doing stuff? Well, I'm sure he's probably doing stuff, but I don't know if he's still doing his comedy. Let's see. Wait, T. Every time I read a book, it changes my brain chemistry and hormone balance. Oh, there you go. Danielle, just authoritarian, cowardly, going with the flow of what's progressive. They don't know what Marxism is actually, and what the implications of this nonsense is, the social cost. That's true. Very few people here need examples of being pilloried for daring to contradict the lie that trans women. Yeah, I'm sure this is true. These people ain't making a dent anyways, lol. Okay, let's see. Violence, yeah, that was funny. Kush, look. But then I have a stiff knee at times. I refuse to kneel before the gender idol. Yeah, it's like we all have to go to altar. I was with I can't remember what it was. A while back, I went with a friend to mass, and of course, at the end, when you go up and you can get the blood in the body, the wafer and the thing. Now, you're only supposed to do that if you're a Catholic. If you're just hanging, you're welcome to be in the mass, but technically, as my understanding, you're not supposed to go and do that unless you're Catholic, and then you don't have to do if you're Catholic. But for some reason, even with the gender, that's not an option. Everybody's expected to comply with this weird ritual, the pronoun ritual. And I thought I used to have a hard time sitting through the land acknowledgments, but I'll take land acknowledgments over pronoun declaring of the pronouns. Let's see. Yeah, arcane eclectic. The moment they start talking about pronouns is the moment I leave. Is my cue to walk out. Yeah. As do most people. That's what the ruling class. As do most people. That's why the ruling class loves it. I might have missed something. Let's see. I can't be bothered with it. Arcane eclectic. There are real existential problems facing us down like the barrel of a gun, and they want to be insulted and triggered over being misgendered. I don't think so. Yeah, especially when they're being misgendered means correct is that you're correctly sexed. The only people who get upset about being misgendered if they're trying to if they're either a they them or they're trying to be the full-time sex mimic, either because they really think that that's who they are or because they get off on the power trip. They're just trying it on being a man this week. Next week I'll try being a gay man, and the week after that I'll try being a straight man, and the week after that neither. Who knows? Sky's the limit, and make people dance around me on eggshells. Let's see. Kushlook. It's a reification of sexism to say that there are idealist criteria that determine who is a woman and who is a man, and then to project this on children is a policing of nonconformity. Yeah. Charles likes to come on and say that fascists are Marxists. That's his mantra. Or maybe he has Tourette's, and when he gets nervous, he says, fascists are Marxists, fascists are Marxists. But hi, Charles. You're welcome to watch. Thank you for tuning in. Let's see. These creeps truly hate women. That's why they hate what they'll never be. Yeah, I mean, and no, you can always tell quite quickly if you're dealing with a guy online. Because sometimes you can tell from sometimes they'll say, she, her, or she, they. And then you can tell by the bio that, they'll have a flag and, have a flag or the anime thing. And so you assume, okay, but sometimes they don't have those indications, and you can really tell if you're dealing with a guy who wants to be able to pretend to be a woman, because they really hate it when you tell them no. They really hate women who say no. Men can't be women. There's no such thing as male women. So doesn't matter what you dress or what you like or what you don't like or what you do or what you cut off or what you add on. You'll always be a guy. Oh, they hate that. And of course, we're living reminders of, like who I just get to be a woman, because that's just what I am. And, I don't have to put any effort into it. They don't like that. It's like they're really trying to be and they should get to be. It's very odd psychology. And then to affirm that, let's collude in the narcissism and in the proclivities. Let's why should someone not be able to do what gets their what floats their boat all the time? It's normal for men to hit women now as long as they're wearing a wig and a dress. Yeah. Kill the TERFs, hate the TERFs, shoot the TERFs, fuck the TERFs. It's like, nice. No, that's not ladylike. These new women, not very ladylike. And always getting their dicks out, and I was, that's not very ladylike to get your twig and berry out. Fantastic point here. Well, thank you. I don't know what it was, but I'm glad you liked it. Jenny Lynn, it's pretty true. The left's niceness has been weaponized and used against them. Yeah, but they let themselves do it. How nice is it to tell a 14-year-old, yeah, maybe you are in the wrong body? I don't know if that's nice, but I get what you're saying. They think it is. Danielle, that's why when they're woke, that's when their woke comes out. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Kramers. Mm-hmm. Jace Hart. I have a friend who works with LGBTQ a lot. Her husband recently came out as trans. Her young kids say they're bi, gay, and the thing where you do see sex. Okay. I think their kids are too young to think. And I think their kids are too young to, yeah. Well, these concepts, this is what's crazy. There's a great meme. A trans kid is like a vegan cat. We know we know where this is coming from. Yeah. It's just like, it's a invention. That's a construct. And a very useful one for men who want to, for older people who have these, gender identities, because again, if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever, and you're coming out as to be a woman, then logically in their mind, that means they were always like this, and it would have been fantastic. That means that they were a trans kid, they just didn't know it. Yeah. Of course, it just happens to also be great for the pharmaceutical company and the tech companies, and a gateway drug to transhumanism more generally, because it makes sense that if you're going to try to liberate ourselves, liberate humans from the body, that one of the things that is to liberate them from the sexed body. And that's where some of the feminism also comes in, when they associated women's oppression, and that women would never be free as long as we're responsible for reproducing the species in our body. But of course, if that gets taken away, I don't think that's going to be good for women. And also this idea that having a kid is a human right, that anybody that this market and with surrogacies and the eggs and the sperm and this and that somehow this is a human rights thing, that everybody should be entitled to, traffic their baby or rent a womb, and a womb with a view. Who knows? Let's see. YouTube is apparently going to YouTube is apparently going to censor half my comments again today. Yeah. The Marxism of good thoughts and feelings. Yeah. If your Marxism isn't nice and it isn't affirming, then it's not real Marxism. It's like we're told that all the time. If your feminism doesn't include trans women, it's not real feminism. If your leftism doesn't include trans women, then it's not real. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, calm down. Such a mind game, this force teaming. I mean, it works though. I understand why you'd want to associate with already established associations and identities. Watching Varoufakis, Khrachvik, watching Varoufakis argue about the meaning of gay pride with the only living founder of gay pride, Fred Sargent. Yeah, I remember that. Unfortunately, Fred Sargent is a huge raging Zionist and Islamophobe, and he followed me. We used to be mutuals until October 7th happened, and then he was saying some crazy shit, and I had to say something, and then he blocked me immediately. But yeah, it was funny when he was trying to educate Fred Sargent about, the significance of the trans women and gay pride. It seems like it seems like everything good that's ever happened there was a trans woman at the helm of it. Was amazing. Yeah. Imagine being one of the 4 people who set the goddamn thing up, and then some fucker, I'm going to say bad words here, comes around and tells you what you actually experienced and your life was wrong. Yeah. Well, Giannis, of course, I'm not, confidence is a great thing. You need to have some confidence, but Giannis is dripping in, in self-love, let's say. And, but he's cool. He's got that thing, like he should, like he's going to ride up on a motorcycle or something. I'm Giannis. You should listen to me in all things. The liberal Marxists, it don't hurt you, so why you care? Yeah. Like, why do you care if people are sending their kids to these Dr. Genderstein clinics? Why do you care that every major institution is codifying the fiction that of quote unquote gender recognition? Why should you care? It's not like, or they turn around as well and I don't know if this is like a on purpose thing, but they want to. So for example, I'll use what Trump's executive order was it last week, the week before, about saying, basically that women's sports are for women and girls' sports are for girls. This gets put in the press. Oh, trans ban, trans exclusion, transphobia. And it's like, no, they don't foreground the women. It's like, no, if you have a couple of dudes, even if it's just one who can say, oh, I identify as a woman, that affects all the women in that team. And that affects the whole thing, because it's not just the fact, it's that they're in that of course, if the people say, okay, yeah, well, I'll just use Leah Thomas. Oh no, I use my kids as an example because my kids play part of football club, soccer club, for those who aren't those in the U.S. So once a month, or maybe twice a month, they'll have round robins and they'll play different football clubs from the schools in the area. And a couple of these clubs have quote unquote trans girls or non-binary, so guys who are on the girls' team. And none of the girls like it, but they don't. But and they get the feeling that what they tell me is that their teachers don't like it either. But it's like, well, what can we do? These are the rules, or it's their school's rules. So you have the girls who it's not just not fair to have to, because already at this age, the boys are faster typically and stronger, but they all have to pretend that these guys are girls. It's just, but yeah, that doesn't matter either. It's like, no. People just say that because they don't want to they don't want to have to confront the idiocy. Either they don't want to say something that's going to get them in trouble, or they don't want to have to admit that they have been, somehow peddling this crazy stuff, some sort of gambler's fallacy. They just don't want to deal with it, and they get mad at us because we're pointing out the elephant in the room, and they don't want to have to acknowledge it. Let's see. Khrachvik, I've never seen a more naked appropriation in my life. I don't know if you're talking about the left or about the trans stuff. I mean, maybe he is right wing, so what? The question remains. Yeah, it's so hilarious. It's like, well, I share lots of things with my right wing brothers and sisters, to talk like Cornel West. I mean, we're humans. We are on the same planet. We eat food. We go to the bathroom. We have thoughts and feelings. There's lots of things that people on the quote unquote right and left share. So it got really odd. very extremely tribal. Subculture, let's see. Do these people have no principles? This is why the only ones to call it out are the ones who do, or the ones who do MLs, Marxist Leninists, and not be blackmailed by liberal hegemony. Well, you definitely pay a cost. You pay a cost to say it. That's for sure. I mean, it's crazy just to think that stating the obvious, that there are males and females, and that you can't actually transition, and that it's batshit crazy to this medical stuff, is basically, I don't know how else to call it, human vivisection, Dr. Genderstein type of stuff, But yeah, here we are. Tara, don't get head gamed by the Freudians. Base statement, Noah. That is a blunt rejection of Foucault. Okay. Let's see. It's notable the whole gender ideology thing. This is arcane eclectic. Didn't gain prominence until the taxification. Oh, sorry, taxification. Freudian slip. Toxification of masculinity became the norm. Yeah, it's. Yeah, and I don't know if it just if how much again we don't. It's not entirely clear how things got so crazy. And that nobody in these any of these institutions or organizations were able to say no or to pump the brakes on this stuff. But I think, yeah, I mean, the whole idea that to turn masculinity into a toxic masculinity, that was always such a bullshit thing. But I don't know if it's because, again, you have to keep on keeping on making up this stuff, or that it becomes like a new you have to have a different shade of lips. You have to have different popular shades of lipstick, or the fashion. So fashion things come in and out. You have to keep it going. And if you're not either not interested or not able to make any headway in terms of the class struggle, in terms of the political economy, then I think these people just double down on sexism, on racism, and then on the sexual stuff. So and then once you have that in place, you have to keep on finding these things. You need another dragon to slay. So okay, so we have LGBT, we have gay rights. Okay, well now we need to have trans rights, or we need to have this right or that right or whatever. And now you have some asexuality study group in King's College to study, the right to make sure that people are, because now we're supposed to be aware. And this is not a joke. It's a problem apparently now that people lack awareness about asexuality, and they want to, and that how the asexuality is also sexuality. Figure that out. Like, why do I have to know? Why does anybody need to know, have their awareness raised about asexuality? My whole thing is, it's like, either you need to go get a physical, because it's not normal to have no sexual feeling at all, ever. There's something going on there. Or I think they're trying to make themselves more precious. Like, oh, I've never been sexual, because then if the guy or girl who flips that switch, they're going to think they really did something, right? Or it's just, it's just a cope for being socially awkward, or, because the sexual market or the mating market is always going to be unequal. You can't you can't demand equality when it comes to sexual access and attractability. Try as they may, that's not going to happen. Let's see. Also, rejection of discursive reality in general. Okay. We live in the feels-based order. Yeah, the feels. If I feel it, it is. Toddler-based order. Okay, I have to go to work, but keep on rocking, guys. Thanks, Khrachvik. See you later. Or he's probably already gone. Khrachvik is great. Yeah. Back when YouTube was based. Let's see. This talk. Oh, here we go. This talk has been good. Thank you, Gribble Report. I had a good time with Noah. I was glad. I texted somebody who had interactions with him. I'm like, so does he have a good sense of humor? Because, I like to joke around, but some people, find that off-putting, but he's a good dude. Okay. The obsession with gender reinforces the cybernetic behavioral conditioning to essentialize individualism. Well, there you go, Wade. I would not disagree with that statement. Let's see. It's a method to lock people out of collective thought and disrupts the ability of developing person from engaging in collective formations. Sounds about right. Danielle agreed. Amen. Can I get an amen? The self-obsession self-excludes and essentializes identity purity fetish. Yep. Let's see. Time to twerk. I guess that's how. I don't know if that meant if that's how she was letting us know she had to work, or if that was if it's literally time to twerk. You got do you? Let's see. The subject of such conditioning can only participate in community building positive actions only if their own individual identity takes primacy over the collective good. Yeah, there's a lot of cuckooing going on, I think. A lot of cuckoos. And what I mean by that is like the cuckoo bird, if I remember, they go and they'll like put their eggs in another bird's nest to, so it's kind of like, and then they get kind of tricked, or they get, then somebody else is taking care of their babies, or they kind of push people out of the nest that way. So don't let your organization, if you have a good organization going on, don't let it get cuckooed by one of these identity movements, especially a particularly crazy one like this with, magic prefixes and male penises. Or no, we can't. What is when was it last year? Judith Butler was on giving an interview, and she literally said, "Why there's nothing essentially male about the penis." I was like, "What?" Or masculine. I'm like, I think the guys would beg to differ. Wade, which is rejected by any collective, of course, I think that was what OFC means, is rejected by any collective, even identity-focused collective attempts, because individual perception of self is too fragmented to form bonds beyond small scale in-groups. Yeah, Wade's spitting these truths here. Balkanization of community, yeah. Forgetting species being, also. And a bonus, you can fleece the indoctrinated with unnecessary pharmaceuticals and medical procedures. Yes. And love bombs, special pins. Oh, God. Your pretty princess, Noette. Yes. Me too. Let's see. Oddly enough, one of the movies that creeped me out the most from the 80s was Sleepaway Camp. Totally could not be made today. Yeah, probably not. Let's see. Danielle, liberal rules-based democratic freedom, Zelensky world order, Guantanamo Bay gift shop. The number one safe space for your holidays. Yeah. My God. Simulacrum. What comes after that? Let's see. The world is too psychotic for parody, and that was like 10 years ago. Yeah. I don't know. If you meant to say Vosh, Vaush, yeah, Vosh, yeah. What a prize he was. Hopefully, USAID going under, or at least being reconfigured, or whatever kind of merger and acquisitions going on in the deep state. Maybe we'll no longer have to deal with him. Jerry Jacobs. I was on the fence about gender ideology at the time 5 years ago, but now relieved that my then 15-year-old granddaughter, irritated at accommodations for gender confused people at school. Yeah. Vosh. Okay. Let's see. Transgression in pursuit of false promises in the service of forgotten lack. Ooh, look at you, Danielle. You're my Lacanian brother from another, or sister from another mister. Yeah, we see the use value in Zizek. I get why people don't. But I find, again, in terms of ideological critique, I find his work has been seminal. But yeah, that's a negative critique. It doesn't, you can't ideological critique your way to a positive political program. Anywho, so it's not enough. And yeah, his takes on Ukraine are interesting. So I don't know, his has serious issues with Putin and believes everything when he comes like, I have friends there and they tell me this and that. I'm like, okay. Anyway, all of us are cracked vessels, yeah. Contradictory. Arcane eclectic. The only reason children are gender confused is because of the influence of the adults around them. Or yeah, I mean, you don't. A kid isn't going to have this whole conceptual apparatus and institutional framework of gender. Exploring your gender to the gender clinic pipeline. So. You would just, I was a tom. It was remember tomboys? I was a tomboy until 12 or 13 or so, and then that was done. It's crazy, and so if there's people who really are that disassociated, that really hate the body they're in that much, then obviously that doesn't mean that you're in the wrong body. That's obviously an indication, a symptom of something else. And whatever that is, I don't know. But if just regular, confusion, it could be that they're unsure about their sexuality and they don't have the words for that. And also they don't have, because it's still quite, obviously not fully developed at that point. And so just the idea that people are going to go through phases and there's going to be confusion, there's going to be difficulty, and that's all right. The thing shouldn't be, oh, let me take you down to the gender clinic and change your pronouns, because that's so fantastic. But, it's just repetition. They're wizards. Let's see. Discourse lunatics. Yeah. They believe they're casting spells and manifesting shit into existence. Yeah. Well, and if you get enough people to act like it, I mean, it's crazy. And even, what was that crazy woman? Oh, she was crazy. What was her name? Nina Turner? Yeah, Nina Turner from the States. And she was all in on this gender stuff. Maybe she still is. And somebody asked her, like, what's a woman? And she said, whoever says they're a woman is a woman. It's like, really, Nina? Just a declaration? What else works that way? Can I just say whatever? Is anybody 40 who says they're 40? Is anybody 2 who says they're 2? Craziness. Let's see. Fourth wave feminism. Okay, arcane eclectic. If fourth wave feminism hadn't made it sinful to be male, then we wouldn't have all these men running around pretending to be women. And what made them abandon masculinity? Yeah, the feminists don't want to take any responsibility for that, and they're not. That's not going to fly. I think there's really anything from the liberals all the way over. No ism is blameless here. All the guardrails, no, whatever you want to call it, no adults in the room, no guardrails, no nothing, no people standing on business, whether it be that women are women, and that Marxism is not about liberating people from their biology, their sex. It's not about liberating men from having to not be able to go into the ladies' room. It's crazy. And to say that, so when people bring up this crazy stuff, who want to say that, look, Engels wrote this book, so we're going to abolish the family, and sex was a capitalist invention, like literally not like male and female, whatever bullshit they have. People need to be able to say, like, well, no, you can be nice about it first. Like, why would you think that, or should that, and talk about it? Like Alexander said, people give an opportunity to look at what happened and to figure it out. But if the people who really don't want to let go of this gender stuff, then you have to be like, okay, well, that's not what we do here. That's not what our group is about, or our association, or our party, or whatever it is. Phenomenology, Danielle, which is where all these positive dogmas come from, discourse and so forth, can make you blind and fascist, so kind of a religion. Okay. Mark Pellegrino. Can you all invite Mark Pellegrino to this talk? I would have Mark, God damn that guy. I enjoyed. One of my guilty pleasures was what was that show? Supernatural. Yeah. And he was so good as Lucifer, but now if I were to watch that show again, maybe now that my kids are a bit older, or my daughters are a bit older, start watching Supernatural. Every time I see him, I'm going to think of his bullshit when it comes to, especially when it comes to Israel, and now and also, of course, his raging anti-communism, which is kind of a hoot. I don't know where he gets his stuff. Arcane eclectic. I'd be like, buddy, are you a tampon? You are. I'd be like, buddy, you are a tampon. Okay. It's like every MFer, you were you before you knew it. Okay. I have no filters and no remorse. Mark, they're not sending their best capitalists. Pellegrino, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so hilarious, this guy. And I think he's a good actor. I think he was on Lost, yeah, before it went crazy. Or, I mean, that's not his fault either. And I mean, it was fun watching him as Lucifer. And he also had a spot. I think he was on that show with Kira Sedgwick, was The Closer. But batshit crazy. And you think to yourself, have they always just been preaching to the choirs? They don't know. It's like it doesn't even occur to them that someone could have an issue with what they're saying, or that they could ever at all have, be wrong or what. It's just odd. Oh yeah, he's funny. They're not sending their best capitalists, yeah, or their best Zionists. I think, what's that guy's name? Dave Smith. He's the comedian who's also a libertarian. One of the cool libertarians. I like listen to Dave Smith, and there's that John Horton or Steve Horton. Horton, anyway. He wrote, anyway. He also debated Pellegrino over Israel. And he totally wiped the floor with Pellegrino, but Pellegrino was all on X the next day talking about how he won that debate. So apparently it's like you can declare, if you can declare your gender, if you're a man, you can also declare like, well, I won that debate. Who are you to say I didn't? Florida man, yes, do it. No. Let's see. Arcane eclectic. I categorically refuse to indulge them by playing along with their mind games. Yeah. What I don't understand is if gender is not sex to them, why they need to dress like a woman rather than just being mentally feminine man, because they get off on it. That's why, or some of them do. The autogynephiles of it all. Just your old school transsexuals. Yeah, it's a power trip. If you can, there's some people who get off on breaking boundaries. Yeah. So if these guys not only get the thrill of engaging in their fetish or their proclivity 24/7, they also get the thrill of knowing that if the women don't like it, there's really not much they can do about it. Because if they bring it up, they're likely to get the stink eye of like, oh, are you a transphobe? Are you this or that? Or because people don't want to confront it. So yeah, just the form of psychosis. You got their own math, you got their own English composition, sentence structures, and all the ways they have a straitjacket on. Yeah, foreclosure, the foreclosure of it all. So yeah, what he's talking about there, I think, or she, sorry. Danielle, I don't know if that's I think you're a dude, but I don't know. Yeah, foreclosures is basically, there's certain concepts, certain key concepts that are really important to, that hold the room together, to use a Lebowskiism. And if you're psychotic, that certain things have been foreclosed. So you're literally, some sort of psychotic Ubermensch, but without the Uber. Down. Okay, let's see. Down with pointy hats. Okay. All I know is that Russia and China are laughing at Western society, deservedly so. China has gender clinics, people. It's not as big as it is here, but there are these. There is this. This has a foothold there. How much of it was
only externally encouraged, but there are a couple of quote unquote gender clinics in China. Russia, I don't know. There's all, and India, oh my God, there's India. This is a big business. If you type in like transgender care or gender affirming care, and you'll find a shitload of Indian doctors in Mumbai. Well, of course, Mumbai's in India, but I was surprised, and then I thought, why am I surprised? But this is also quite big in India. Let's see. Thank you, Tara. You're welcome. Let's see. Modern feminism is responsible for a lot of this insanity. Well, they play a role. They are not they're not blameless in this, far from it, but I wouldn't say like again, they'd be like, it's but for modern feminism we wouldn't have this, but like same thing about saying like, well, it's all porn, or it's all patriarchy, or it's all bourgeois libertinism. Okay. But that doesn't really explain much. We still would have to explain it. I think rad-lib feminism promoted and magnified the inadequacies in some men to the point that they adopted an if you can't beat them, join them mentality. Yeah. Let's see. Danielle, it's an attempt to get out of guilt bullying 100%. So from guilt, you go to victimhood and surplus victimhood to that. I'm not just a woman, but a trans woman. The most radical hated, the most hated woman. Yeah. Let's see. Max Gorky. What's your opinion on Genevieve Gluck? She tends to blame it all on porn. Genevieve Gluck I call her Gluck and Duck. She's blocked me. Because I made this sin. I made a sin. I did Jennifer Billick, who's great on this stuff, following the money. The trying to bring to the forefront the capital aspect and the transhuman aspect of the gender stuff. She posted it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek psychoanalysis I did of feminism, basically saying that the patriarchy it was like feminist to patriarchy. I love you, don't stop, or I love you, never leave me, or I hate you, don't leave me, or something like that. Basically, my thesis was that, applying again Zizekian ideological critique, or my version of it, that the patriarchy is an ideological fantasy that is critical to the libidinal economy of kind of mainstream feminism. I call patriarchy feminism. So why can't that feminists really like their patriarchy? And you can tell it because when you poke the patriarchy, they get pissed at you. So anyway, Genevieve Gluck was not happy about my tongue-in-cheek psychoanalysis of feminist pathological, you could say, clinging to the patriarchy. So she said something like, how original, using postmodern intellectual to bash feminists, yawn. And then that's all she wrote. And then she blocked me. So that's fine. And I've heard through the grapevine that they're still really pissed. And so somebody's is writing a takedown. They're going to take me down in Redux. I'm like, please do. I enjoy it, So it's only inspired me more. So I've since gone even harder in the paint on psychoanalyzing or doing the ideological critique of the feminists. And so I have my typology now of the hysterical feminist, the perverted feminist, the psychotic feminist, the obsessive. So, and also I realized that the schizoid of Deleuze and Guattari and the psychotic feminist personified in Judith Butler form a complete circle. So deal with it, ladies. Ooh la la. If you didn't like my funny version of my ideological critique of the feminists why they love their patriarchy, you'll really enjoy the next one. So anyway, I guess that would be my opinion of Genevieve Gluck. She is, and if anybody here knows about psychoanalysis, Lacanian psychoanalysis, or the Slovenian school application of it to ideological critique, Genevieve Gluck is a pervert. I'll just leave it at that. She really, really loves to expose these degenerate men, and over and over again cataloging all the things that they do. So she's my face case for the feminist pervert. You poke the bear, people. You poke the bear, or was it mess with the bull, get the horns? And I am a Taurus. Not that I believe in astrology, but I am kind of stubborn. Anyway, let's see how we are. Let's see. I have to fast forward here a bit because I'm running out of steam. Because I love this. Thank you guys for tuning in and for the comments. I really, really appreciate it. This is, I'm kind of dipping off here, and I can hear myself kind of, circling the drain. So let's see. Where does Tara find these funky ass tunes? There was a website, and I can let you know. I can't remember what it's called now, but there's a thing you can go where you can get the copyright free music, or the music that you can't get in trouble for copyright infringement. And most of it's like really super old stuff because I think after 100 years the copyright goes off. But there's a few gems. There's a few diamonds in the rough there. And I went to the website. I just found a couple of copyright-free music that I can use, because the stuff that comes with StreamYard's a bit, I don't know, I wouldn't like it too much. So let's see. I just hope the gender queers don't find my mother. She's the Bruce Lee of gaslighting. Let's see. Little did they know they were just saying, whoa, man. Yeah. Let's see. It's all in the bios now. Yeah. I was actually thinking about the nudist example earlier. Yeah. What's with the nudists? I'll DM you. I have a tweet that I tweeted out a while back about the nudists, making the nudist comparison about where they're, where's their representation? Why aren't they seen literally more in public? Why do they have to hide away in their own little small beaches and nudist resorts? Ryan Long is still doing his comedy. It's so weird to see some actually funny comedians these days. Yeah. Let's see. The one I did about reading books, because somebody said read a book as if it would change who you are and validate pronouns on a biological level. Yeah. Have you not read this book? Like, so hilarious. Like, can you use your own words? It's like they're so passionate about this stuff, yet they can't put it in their own words. They have to throw books at you, like, and even ones that aren't backing up what they say, like, you need to read Engels. Like, no, you need to. From the people who cry about privilege, the lack of self-awareness is astounding. Yes, this is true. Hate watchers. Yeah. Hate watchers. Let's see. That's why they call us the great Satan. Self-indulgent narcissism is kind of our whole thing. Yeah, definitely not a fan of Giannis. Let's see. We only live, so we live in a society when it's convenient, yeah. Mick Wayne, demisexual. I'm only attracted to people I'm emotionally connected to. In other words, you experience normal health. Yeah. This thing of having to put lipstick on a pig or to make, it's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe kind of what we need an analogy, like a sofa cover. Like, like I have a really old, crazy sofa. It's gnarly, but like the structure is okay. So we just buy sofa covers every 2 years or so. But I wouldn't say it's not a couch anymore, or it's some sort of non-binary couch or whatever it is. See, I'm getting tired, so my humor is suffering. Mick, you'd think so, but there are far fewer normally healthy people out there than we'd hope for. Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder. Danielle, I'm an originalist, pre-porn sexual. Yeah. Tomboy here too. Yeah. So Zizek is Slovenian, so I'm guessing he has some kind of anti-Serb, anti-Russian proclivities to give him his pro-Ukraine stance. Yeah, I mean, if anybody here knows how I've been poking the feminist patriarchy, I was having a conversation with someone the other night about, because someone actually wants me to elaborate on the piece that Jennifer Billick posted, because it was quite short. So I'm like, sure, anytime I can put my Zizek to use so I can justify the time I spent trying to crack that code. Anyway, and so I was saying something about that. I was like, oh, I'm feeling really close to him because I've been doing this psychoanalysis of the feminists, the patriarchy. I'm like, I feel really close to Zizek, but also far away at the same time, because his position on Ukraine is very much not on mine. And he wasn't totally genderborged. He did come out and make some statements about, that were fairly mild critiques of it. But even that, he got called a transphobe. But inside story, what I heard from somebody who knows his wife is that, and this could be, that his wife, his current wife, had a friend, a really close friend. I don't know if it was a family member or a friend who went trans. So it was a guy who, male to female, and went through all the steps, and then finally got the documents from the government with the female gender marker on it, and then like a week later killed himself. And to me, I mean, I don't know anything about that. It could be why he treads carefully about the trans stuff, because of his wife's personal experience, but also because there's after the Marxists who have got along and cowed and pandered to the gender cult, it's the Lacanians that piss me off, because the lack, how can you miss this gaping lack that is gender identity? I mean, it's just to be the quintessential example for pretty much every single Lacanian psychological concept you can think of, but yet they're some of the most ardent, trans women or women, and conflating sexuality with sex. It's like and also are conflating this, the structures of the psyche that have been labeled feminine or masculine, not as literally feminine or masculine, but for metaphorically, and then somehow parlaying that as an excuse for men being male women. It's crazy. But yeah, could be. I don't know. He has a thing about Russia, but as Alexander's mentioned before, and I don't deny, like, I dig Zizek. I just have a soft spot for him. I've met him a couple times, nothing like friend, but just like, had a brief exchanges with him. I just really like him. However, his politics, not so much. And his politics are often quite imperialist. I don't know if he's aware of that or not. So yeah, a lot of his political takes I don't share. But when it comes to ideological critique and his some of his other contributions, they can. I'm not going to throw out my sublime object of ideology because he's for some reason swallowed the Ukraine story whole. Okay, so let's see. Nina fell off so hard. Yeah, that was crazy. Scott Horton, thank you, Scott Horton. He's the other libertarian that's worth watching, in my opinion. Dave is good instinct, wrong theory though. Yeah. Yeah, I can't lie. Dave triggers me when he talks the dumb shit. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, he also, because Dave also seems to he also will parrot all the anti-Russian propaganda. Apparently he doesn't realize that it came from the Nazis. So it's kind of weird. It's like, do you know that what you're saying is kind of like, as far as I'm aware, that's some like Nazi anti-Russian propaganda that you're talking about there. So yeah, so Dave's, yeah, I'm not saying he's great on everything, but when it comes to Israel and Palestine, and he's just logical. He seems to be logical, but again, he has his blind spots. And there seems to be no anti-communist propaganda that isn't really hard for him to swallow whole. All press is good press. That typology is brilliant. The institutions can't deal with them because they occupy them and they are reproduced by them. I know. This is what's funny, Danielle, is because it's like, it's hilarious. And when Jennifer was saying, oh yeah, apparently Redux is there's someone who's gonna, it's like, gonna write this, take down this piece. And it's so hilarious because Genevieve Gluck gets mad and a couple other people have like blocked me because how dare you can't say anything about their patriarchy. And so it's like, it's bullshit. It's postmodern. It's it's all these terrible, stupid things, yet they're still obsessing over it. Like what, 3 weeks later? I just, and I was trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with this craziness that's coming at me? And I realized about 2 or 3 days into it, I'm like, oh, I should treat all of this like I'm a psychoanalyst and they're a patient on the couch and they're just, talking. So I thought, oh, that's fun. I'll just turn around. I'm like, it's kind of like talk, and I'll respond to their tweets or their comments on Substack or Facebook, like I'm writing analysis notes, and that was great. But then they caught on to it, and then they stopped giving me all the ammunition because it was so hilarious. I'm like, they just keep on proving my point over and over again and making me more and more curious. And of course, you get irritated if people, come at you with the bullshit. I'm like, oh, well, I thought I was being pretty, that was the kid glove version. I'll go all in on these bitches. Sorry. Lovingly. Tough love. Let's see. Thank you for the show. Thank you. I've only seen some out in California. I don't know how they get away with it being nude in public, but maybe there are special laws in California. Yeah. We still here? Hey, Kulak. We really need a special name for every facet of our personality. Yeah. Zizek is a genderist and queer theorist, in my opinion. I would not call him a genderist, and I would not call him a queer theorist. I would not do that. But yeah, he is in that social network. So there's people who he did call Judith Butler a dirty bitch once, but then he felt bad about it and apologized. So they're often on different sides. I don't think he's a genderist, and I don't think he's a queer theorist. I don't think that's fair assessment, but I would have to hear. I'd have to hear more with that. Let's see. Yeah, no, I mean, you could make that argument. Again, I'm not well versed in quote unquote queer theory. I know that their philosophical foundation that they have that there's a lot of Foucault and Derrida, maybe some Lacan. That could be. I don't know. Again, I don't know how they're using him or them. But I would not. I think I could win a debate on if he's a genderist or not. But not that I need to defend him on that. Let's see. He did. What I would concede to is that for a long time he tried to thread that needle. And then, and even his kind of overly respect, his inroads, that wasn't enough for him not to be called a transphobe by that dude who wrote that book, Man-Made Woman. Yeah. Judith Butler and Zizek are quite different, actually. Sorry, they are. Let's see. So it wasn't all he figured it may have been. Should have talked to Zizek about lax, about not what it's all made out to be. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I would say there was in Compact Magazine. Zizek wrote two things that talk specifically about the gender ideology, and even that was even that got him put on the naughty stool as and trying to out him as a transphobe was gaining some steam, but then he ended up pissing everybody off more about his Ukrainian stance, and so that just kind of, and now I don't know, I think maybe he is like 75, maybe 77 even, and he's on Substack now, so maybe he just got it kind of burned out and he's just gonna, I don't know. But I've been busy with other things, so I don't know what his current position is on the gender stuff, even though it is one, because I just kind of put him to the side because his takes on Ukraine were, I was kind of irritated with those, and then some of his stuff on Israel-Palestine also pissed me off. So I kind of put him to the side. I'm like, I don't want to break up with you because I really like the ideological critique, so I'm just going to put a pause on that. So I don't know. I'm not at all up to date on what he's been saying the last year. Let's see. They probably first time confronted where they can't dismiss it with libtard authority and tropes. I don't know. I missed something here. Ironically, sex reductionist. Oh, is he talking about Redux and Genevieve Gluck? Yeah. You can't be too naughty if you want to remain in the cool club. Yeah. He's not theoretically, but he gives in obviously. Yeah. And that and the Ukraine stuff there with the woke libtards. Basically, Kushlak, basically nothing less than total acceptance of the strange, flexible dogmas of gender will get you roasted. That's why so much of the left has just been silenced. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I don't particularly care what his position is. It's not historically important since he comes so late. There you go. All right, we did it. Okay, I don't know who's still here with my because I am aware that I lost some steam here. Thank you very much. It was fun. Please do like, subscribe, follow, or whatever it is, wherever you are. Rumble, YouTube, Substack. You can be, if you're a free subscriber, you get all my content on Substack. But if you want to comment, then you have to pay the $5 a month or whatever, which I welcome because, mama's got to live too. But I want to actually share my stuff. So it's free subscription on Morbid Symptom Substack. You get all the content, and I'm starting to write more. So that'll be on there. But if you want to comment on it, then you will have to fork over the $5. And if you do, I'd be very appreciative. But times are tough. All right. So please do like, subscribe. My thanks again to Noah. That was great. I hope to have him back. I really enjoyed getting into the gender weeds, but not losing sight of the forest, which is easy to do in these types of debates, especially if you bring in get sidetracked into talking about how there's only two sexes and counteracting every crazy thing. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Please do like and subscribe. And I'm going to turn on the music because I always forget to do that. And then there's just like this weird lull. Okay. Bye, everyone.